TWSB, Chapter 51, In the Empire, The Demonic Beasts, 2. Posted on April 2, 2022 by admin, 12 comments down pointing arrow. You're angry. Who wouldn't be angry at this? Bong. Ah, that scared me. We quickly looked up at the sky. The tyrant electric dragon's large chin had approached us at some point and was ruthlessly slamming down against my holy domain. The monster was mercilessly chomping down with its teeth as if it was a child trying to take a figurine out from a snow globe. Bang. Boom. Your Highness, you truly are an extremely strong priest, as I have heard. Vice Captain Elizabeth gasped in admiration. I had not noticed before because this was my first time being attacked from above, but a golden dome was sparkling at the top of my holy domain whenever the electric dragon slammed down. The circle worked as a shield both on the ground and in the air. The holy domain was a circle that blocked all attacks against the priest, however it was only omnipotent against opponents with weaker divine power. The electric dragon had to have lower divine power than me since it was a demonic beast. Furthermore, my ether was currently so full that it was overflowing. This was truly a relief. Bang, bong, bang. Roar. The bastard opened his large mouth and roared, as if it was angry at the holy domain that wasn't even shaking. Demi curled up against my feet while all of us except the Imperial Prince covered our ears out of reflex. I thought that we might die from ruptured eardrums before this bastard could chomp or eat us to our deaths. Bang, bang. Demonic beasts are weak against water and fire, but will water not work on this one at all? I will try. I had to pretty much shout that question to the Imperial Prince when Christelle responded. Her blue-gray eyes were oddly excited. She cautiously moved her right fingertips. The water wall that had appeared around us earlier, as if to protect us, slowly rose up. The electric dragon was so focused on us that it didn't seem to notice it. Bong. Boom. Chh. A torrent of water slammed against the electric dragon's large head. And then. Chh. Roar. There were enough sparks to easily roast 4 people and the electric dragon roared again. There wasn't even a scratch on its body once the water completely evaporated away. I felt my head getting cold with fear. I guess its electric attribute offsets its water weakness. Bong. Boom. Boom. The electric dragon must have gotten angry at the provocation as it was slamming down quicker than before. My ears were hurting and the ground underneath my feet was shaking. The situation might be different if we had run into a smaller and more manageable electric attribute demonic beast. However, the electric dragon was a legendary demonic beast that usually only appeared once every 200 years. I didn't know why it showed up after such a short time or why it appeared from the first wave of demonic beasts. There was one more thing for me to check. I looked toward Imperial Prince Cedric. We should see how it reacts to metal. His orange eyes glowed as if he understood what I was saying. And soon. Pabat. The dagger that was attached to the side of his boot shot up into the air. The weapon that was accurately flying toward the electric dragon's eyes. Chh. Roar. Was struck by a spark midair and burned to a crisp. Ha. So basically, going out of the holy domain with a sword in hand might cause us to get struck by lightning with a lightning rod in our hand. Although water couldn't damage the monster, it could at least catch its attention or make it angry. We also had our MVP, our esteemed divine beast. Bong. Bang. Bang. We should probably aim for its hind legs. The center of its weight should be there. Vice Captain Elizabeth fixed her grip on her sword after I shouted. Christelle was saying something to me while the Imperial Prince just observed me with a calm gaze. As for me, I was thinking about my sister even in such a situation. That little punk's dream until she was 7 years old was to become a Tyrannosaurus. Asterisk. Demi, can you do it? You are our ace today. Screech. The red panda flailed his 2 front paws with a savage look on his face. His white cheeks and his shaking whiskers were full of determination. I carried Demi in my arms and filled him with ether. Christelle checked on Demi and my situation as she slowly enlarged a water drop. Bang, bang, bong, hey, over here, you giant chicken. TL, the Korean uses the term, Yungari Tongfaya, which one? Would take a while for me to explain to. Has no English equivalent, so just change to giant chicken as a means to insult the beast. Giant chicken. She was shouting at it. The electric dragon seemed extremely upset at that comment as it opened its jaws wide and roared. Christelle smiled and used a thin strand of water to poke at its head from the left. Roar. Chh. The beast turned its head to the left and launched a spark. Demi, now. Screech. Rumble. An extremely large Venus flytrap quickly grew in the dirt on the electric dragon's right side. Green vines about 2 meters in diameter shot up into the air. A guaiacum tree was growing right next to them. Hearing the noises, the electric dragon turned its head to the other side. Chhh. Roar. 2 water drops the size of exercise balls burst in front of the bastard's eyes. The electric dragon violently shook its head. Its eyes seemed weak compared to its hide. Chh. The house-sized Venus flytrap used that moment to open its jaws. It looked large enough to cover the electric dragon's jaws. I could feel Demi sucking out my ether and trying his best. After that, clench. Roar. The Venus flytrap bit down on the electric dragon's head. The electric dragon flailed and stumbled as its jaws and sight were blocked. It released sparks from its mouth, but Demi persisted without losing. Chh. Not so fast. The sparks reached my holy domain as well. However, my circle was fine. I did not build up my toughness with Cardinal Boutier to be taken out by a damn demonic beast. The anxious electric dragon flailed. Its front limbs were too short for it to pull the Venus flytrap off. This was our chance. Tap. The Imperial Prince was a punk who did not need my signal. He instantly charged out of the holy domain and moved toward the electric dragon's left leg. Vice Captain Elisabeth, who charged out at almost the same time, was aiming for its right leg. Young Lady Sarnez. Yes. Christelle prepared the core skill for this attack. The Imperial Prince and Vice Captain Elisabeth slide away while slashing their swords horizontally. The 2 sword rays were as cold as a woman's scorn that could cause frost in the middle of summer. Slash. Bang. Roar. There were deep red slash marks visible on its large legs. The attackers quickly dodged the tail and retreated behind some trees. As the beast flailed from pain and stomped around. Chh. An actual field of frost appeared under its feet. This ice had appeared out of nowhere. The electric dragon lost its balance on the suddenly slippery ground and stumbled. It felt as if its heavy body was falling in slow motion. Christelle finally took a breath and smiled. Boom. Roar. It was shaking almost as much as the mountain rumbling. The fallen demonic beast roared as the ground shook. It was almost over. Vice Captain Elisabeth, please give it to me. I threw the guaiacum branch that Demi had grown to her since she was comparably closer. She grabbed the branch with her left hand and immediately jumped. As for the sword that was in the young countess's right hand. Stab. Roar. It instantly pierced through the electric dragon's tail and stabbed into the ground. The demonic beast drooled and growled. She quickly released her sword and jumped up. To tap. Chh. The demonic beast launched a short spark as Vice Captain Elisabeth jumped. The young countess was calm despite the fact that she would have been electrocuted had she jumped a moment later. The guaiacum in her left hand seemed to flow like water as it moved to her right hand, and then... Stab. Roar. It quickly stabbed into the electric dragon's eye. Vice Captain Elisabeth was using so much strength that the veins on her forehead were visible as she stabbed the branch deep inside. I tightly hugged Demi. I gulped, concerned that the electric dragon might launch one last attack. And finally, grr, boom, it growled one last breath and its head fell. Vice Captain Elisabeth was breathing heavily as she landed on the pebbled ground. Her forehead was a bit wet. You worked really hard, Vice Captain Elisabeth. Ah, it wasn't much, Your Highness. Ha 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 ha. All the tension in my body released and I couldn't help but laugh at this very Elisabeth-like response. I released my holy domain and put Demi down. Vice Captain Elisabeth suddenly asked me a question. Your Highness, how did you come up with using guaiacum? It is being used in the reconstruction of Juliet Palace. They usually use red sandalwood or ebony, but they said that they brought a sturdier wood because they thought I might destroy the room again. Basically, this was the strongest type of wood I knew about. I only had praises for Demi, who understood exactly what I wanted. Wood doesn't conduct electricity, so I thought that it could be a safe weapon. I was relieved that Vice Captain Elizabeth was not hurt at all. It feels odd catching it like this. My dream when I was young was to become a tyrant electric dragon. Vice Captain Elizabeth laughed out loud at Christelle's comment and walked toward me. My mouth was stiff for a moment. It was at that moment. Roar! Elizabeth! The electric dragon roared and the Imperial Prince shouted at the same time. Crackle! Baba bang! A large spark ball burst out of the fallen demonic beast's jaw. Vice Captain Elizabeth's body was sent flying. Ah! Vice Captain Elizabeth! Christelle and I quickly ran toward the fallen Elizabeth. It was hard to focus on anything. Are you okay, Vice Captain Elizabeth? I'm okay. Christelle carefully turned her around. Thankfully, she was not bleeding. She did not get hit by the electric dragon's breath directly. She seemed to have been swept up in the aftershock while standing next to it. I finally managed to breathe. I could see some scratches on the young countess's cheeks. She slowly put some strength into her lower body and stood up. His Royal Highness, I am fine, so go to the bottom of the mountain. That is an order. The Imperial Prince came over at some point and said in a low voice. His sword was drenched in the demonic beast's blood. I turned around to see that the Imperial Prince made certain that the electric dragon was really dead this time. What are you talking about? I'm fine too. Can you hold a sword with a broken arm? Quote. Vice Captain Elizabeth bit down on her lips. Christelle and I jumped in shock and inspected her right arm. We had not noticed until the Imperial Prince said something. My heart sank seeing that it was limp. I had memorized a few more healing circles for today, but none of them could heal a fracture of this level. I clenched my teeth. I'm sorry, Vice Captain Elizabeth. I am still lacking as a healing priest. Not at all, Prince Jesse. It is my fault for letting my guard down. The young countess smiled. Her forehead had cold sweats for a different reason now. I'll call the Marquis. I don't want to hear your fiancé curse me with a grudge or something. The Imperial Prince spoke again. His second sentence made Vice Captain Elizabeth finally give the slightest of nods. She rummaged through her pocket with her left hand and pulled out a transparent orb. It was a disposable magic tool that all participants had received at the beginning of the Great Clearance of Demonic Beasts. Her left hand with the sparkling yellow diamond ring clenched the orb. Crack! The orb cracked and a red mana strand shot up into the air. I looked up following the light to see multiple red lights visible on the blue sky. That meant that there were a lot of participants giving up right now. My goodness, Elizabeth. I then heard a familiar voice from the direction of the valley. Marquis Francois Duham, who used his specialty of teleportation to instantly appear, was approaching us with a concerned gaze. He was the competition organizer and the only paramedic. According to his younger brother, Captain Duham, he trained his magic ability day in and day out waiting for today so that he could rescue people and descend the mountain. Why is your arm like that? My goodness. The four of you caught that monster. The Marquis' light pink eyes were shaking. He seemed unable to decide whether to be more shocked at the electric dragon's corpse or the unexpected patient. Vice Captain Elizabeth frowned. Old man, can you just take me down? Sure. We will need to hurry if we don't want to get in trouble with young Master Clamard. But to take down an electric dragon. The Marquis looked at each of us before putting his hand on Vice Captain Elizabeth's forehead. That contact seemed to be enough for both of them to teleport. Christelle grabbed the young countess's hand for a moment, let go, and whispered that she would see her later. The Imperial Prince spoke up at that moment. Marquis. Yes, Your Royal Highness. What the hell is going on? The Imperial Prince shook his sword once before pointing it at the tip of the Marquis's chin. His eyes were fluctuating like the surface of the sun. Your Royal Highness. Quiet. I tried to stop him but he shut me up. I was also curious about what was going on but thought that this bastard was quite vicious even with Vice Captain Elizabeth being injured. The legend-grade demonic beast that was the winning sacrifice 2 years ago appeared at the first charge. Is something like this common? I ask for your understanding, Your Royal Highness. This is the first time something has happened. Then your thoughts on why this happened. The low voice only asked extremely clear questions. The Marquis slowly closed his shaking eyes before opening them back. He was the most passionate person in the Empire when it came to demonic beast and magic tool research. He should at least have a theory about this. It is probably because there is more than one divine item here. The explanation that came out of his mouth was something that nobody had expected. TWSB, Chapter 52, In the Empire, the Demonic Beasts. This is just a hypothesis, but, Your Royal Highness, divine items are different from magic tools. The power does not disappear forever simply because it was used once. A divine item's existence itself is the will of the Almighty God. The Marquis continued speaking in a slightly shaking voice. I used that time to grab a painkiller made of ground medicinal herbs from my leather bag. We might as well reduce our patient's pain if the conversation is going to take a while. Christelle realized what I was trying to do and quickly created some water for me. Vice Captain Elizabeth silently bowed toward us and used the medicine. I hope it helps. Are you talking about young Lady Sarnez? Yes, Your Royal Highness. The blessing of the Blue Sea that was absorbed into the young lady's body is using its abilities without disappearing. In that case, its presence should remain as well. The Imperial Prince and the Marquis turned toward our direction, specifically at Christelle. The MC looked back at them with a calm face while I was sweating internally. A divine item being in the body counts as a divine item. Then, that includes me too. The Sword of Wisdom from the Flaming Star alone makes a ton of monsters come out of the dungeon every year full of aggression. Monsters like that tyrant electric dragon appeared once every 100 or 200 years. However, the blessing of the Blue Sea is in this place as well right now. I'm also here. I gulped and did my best to focus my gaze on Vice Captain Elizabeth. The reason that I gained an immense amount of ether and the reason Christelle's mom had no choice but to use the blessing of the Blue Sea was probably because the divine item in the Temple of Boundaries was used for me. So basically, there were 3 divine items here right now. I feel a bit better as the medicine is taking effect. Thank you very much, Your Highness. Vice Captain Elizabeth smiled toward me. She must have thought that she needed to console me in some way after seeing the serious look on my face. I smiled bitterly. Of course I was worried about Vice Captain Elizabeth, but I was thinking that this was very bad for the great clearance of demonic beasts. I was too naive to think that things would be smooth because we had 2 strong MCs with us. I'm sure that the MCs won't die and will figure out some way to gain glory in the end, but it was only normal for the leading roles to face some tribulation. Damn it, why didn't I think of that earlier? Did the second wave start? Yes, Your Royal Highness. Most of the demonic beasts are stronger than normal. Last year's winning tribute appeared on the other side of the valley. They thankfully succeeded in killing it. Any casualties? There are around 70 injured people including Elizabeth. Thankfully, nobody has died. The warriors of the Empire are strong, Your Royal Highness. Please don't worry too much. My mind instantly cleared up. The Sword of Wisdom from the Flaming Star, Christelle, and I made this year's great clearance of demonic beasts more difficult than ever. A legend-grade demonic beast appeared in the first wave and last year's winning tribute appeared during the second wave that started while we were taking the monster down. If it continues like this, it wouldn't be shocking for another winning tribute to appear in the final third wave. The Imperial Prince's orange eyes calmed down. You may leave. He withdrew the sword pointed at the Marquis. How vicious. 3 cheers for His Royal Highness. Please be victorious. Marquis François Duham respectfully addressed him. It was the first time I realized that he could have such a serious look on his face. The Marquis put his hand back on Vice Captain Elizabeth's forehead. It was really time to descend the mountain now. The young Countess looked up at the Imperial Prince. Cedric, you want to trust His Highness. Then do it. Quote. Me. I was about to speak in shock when the Marquis and Vice Captain Elizabeth suddenly started glowing and then crumpled into pieces. The particles that resembled pollen scattered in all directions and disappeared. Only Demi, Christelle, the Imperial Prince, and I were left in the silent valley. Was she talking about me just now? It's a bit disturbing that things became complicated because of me. It changes nothing. The Imperial Prince responded to Christelle's comment. Honestly speaking, RMC did not look disturbed and the Imperial Prince didn't seem to care much about what had already happened. It wasn't as if they could cancel the competition. The strong demonic beasts would break through the barrier, descend the mountain, and attack the Lord's castle and the nearby city if they were not stopped here. Then shall we take a short break? Both pairs of eyes turned toward me at that comment. Man, they look so scary when they do that. We need to fill our bellies and come up with a strategy. Resting when we can rest is also an ability. Prue, Demi quietly screeched as if to show his agreement. See, even this guy is saying he's hungry. Asterisk. It's hot. Frederick quickly put the coffee cup down. The strong coffee felt extremely hot, as if it was still boiling. Aurélie Boutier tilted her head after seeing the frown on her face. Why were you in such a rush to drink it? Shouldn't you be asking if I am okay? Ha ha ha. Aurélie's beige-colored eyes curled up as she laughed. The two of them were seated in the Empress's office as usual, going about their respective businesses. The Empress was reading a report about the incident in a small village to the south while the Cardinal was finally catching up on the May 1st edition of the less than bi-weekly Register Greater Than. I heard that those punks took care of it well. The daughter of the innkeeper from that time was dragged to the prison in the Lord's castle. Yes, it happened as you said it would. The Cardinal nodded her head and slowly sipped her coffee. She was able to receive new information without much worry after working hard to brainwash herself that the children would be fine. She had learned this from her contractor, the Empress. Her movements were light as she flipped through the magazine. She took over 40% of all the imperial gifts for 10 years but has only spent 2 million francs for the inner herself. That is a bit suspicious. Yes, it looks like I'll need to badger the territory lord about it. I'll also need to make them search the inn again, including underneath it. The Empress's cherry-colored eyes squinted as she commented. The situation had been quite simple when she and the Cardinal flipped Lucas Village over 10 years ago. She had wondered what kind of grand scheme a person who dared to commit scam gambling at a place the imperial family stayed would have, but that bastard did not have much planned out. However, it seemed a bit different this time. According to the report, a large amount of cash seemed to have disappeared. Do you think that the territory lord would have received bribes from that woman? But we might need to look through the entire empire if that is the case. I'm sure there are many similar cases. That is my job, Frederick brusquely responded. Aurélie simply smiled as if she was a painting since she knew the Empress was right. It seemed better to change the topic. Oh, would you look at this? Lady Sarah Belliard was quite nice in this article. That old hag is an old hag no matter how nice she is. No, the contents of her interview with the prince, I don't think there is anything in there that will be a problem. Has something like this ever happened? She must have become quite capricious with old age. The Empress responded with annoyance. She had already heard on the day it was released that the exclusive interview with Prince Jesse had come out quite favorable. Although she had not personally read it, there seemed to be nothing talking badly about the imperial family or mentioning their relationship with the Holy Kingdom. That was enough. She brought the coffee up to her lips again. Damn it, it's still hot. Drink it slowly, you're not good with hot things. The Empress put her coffee cup back down on the desk. The Cardinal seemed quite concerned now. Frederick suddenly brought up a topic. I have a bad feeling. Those punks. Do you think that they are doing a good job catching the demonic beasts? It's not like you to worry about something like that, Eve. Are you angry because you have more work? The situation seemed opposite of how it had been last week. She had been the one who was anxious about the children back then, but now it was the Empress thinking about her son and the others with concern. The Cardinal laughed out loud before summoning the Chief of Staff. Let's ask for cold coffee instead. You should feel better with that. Asterisk. Here you go, please try it. Quote. Imperial Prince Cedric glared at the beef jerky in my hand. People are going to think I poisoned it or something. It was made in the Juliet Palace kitchen. Your stomach needs to be full for your condition to be good. Can I eat that if you're not going to? It's really good. Christelle's eyes were sparkling as she stood there alone. She seemed hungry even after finishing a third of the veal jerky Gonal packed for me. I couldn't blame her since this was neither too salty nor too chewy. It stuck right in your mouth. Even Demi seemed interested in it. I'll give it to the young lady if you don't want. Tap. The bastard snatched the jerky from my hands so quickly that I couldn't even see him as he was moving. My fingertips were tingling. Feeding him is hard too. I quietly mumbled. The Imperial Prince bastard either didn't hear or was pretending not to hear as he simply put the whole piece of jerky in his mouth and started chewing. I used to make trainer plain noises with the spoon to feed Yunce when she would mess around at the table at the age of 5 or 6, but at least that was entertaining. How could she say this bastard wants to trust me? Oh, they're coming again. Demi, take a good look at your big sis. Christelle snorted before shouting in a loud voice. Demi, who was eating a heart-shaped flower while in my arms, poked his head out to look up at her. There was something charging viciously toward us from the top of the mountain. Rumble. CRAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA To be more specific, it was a cannibalistic demonic beast that looked like a boar. A person would fall under a strong curse if they were bitten by this monster. I think that was why its name was the cursed black pig. Usually, catching a demonic beast of this level would reward a lot of points. This was already our 5th one. Look at these delicious looking things acting out. Christelle shouted as she swung her whip. Now that I think about it, I wonder if the Jeju black pig looks similar. TL, play on words. Curse is pronounced Juju in Korean while this is Jeju. Splash. CHHH. A white spray of water looked like a large fan as it swept up the cursed black pig. The wave completely covered its sight, making the demonic beast stomp its feet after losing its sense of direction. It really sounded like a dying pig. Squeal. CHH. Its large body lost power as soon as it touched the water and stumbled. The way its hide melted into red looked quite disgusting. The beast stomped around a bit before it fell to the ground. Christelle created a circular water drop and placed it over the demonic beast's head as if it was a helmet. Gurgle, gurg, gurgle. I'm finally getting the hang of this after doing it multiple times. She commented mischievously. The demonic beast drowned almost immediately after touching the holy power of water. This was the exact repertoire that was used earlier. Christelle and the Imperial Prince took turns getting up and taking care of the various demonic beasts that charged toward us. I just sat here with my holy domain released, giving the 2 people and 1 animal water and snacks while coming up with different strategies based on the attributes. However, there weren't many times for my strategies to be used. The beasts that appeared in front of us after the Tyrant Electric Dragon were all at about this level. Even 1 person was enough to instantly take care of them. Demi, how many points is that? Christelle asked the red panda. There were 2 small apple trees at the end of the valley where the cursed black pig had entered. The tree on the left had orange fruit while the tree on the right had blue-gray fruits hanging from them. Even if the colors are weird, would it still be delicious since Demi grew them? Screech. Demi waved the purple flower petal in his hand. Fruits quickly grew on a branch on the right apple tree. That was a 3.1. Thank you, that's the highest score. 3 new apples had appeared. Christelle elegantly moved her arms and legs to thank Demi. The 2 of you are finally tied. I quickly commented. There were now 11 orange apples and 11 blue-gray apples. It was a bit subjective since Demi was the only judge, but... Crunch. The Imperial Prince stood up and pulled out his sword at that moment. I was slightly shocked and turned to look at him. Did you just hear that, Your Royal Highness? Yes. Yes, Your Highness. Both of them seemed to have heard what I heard. It sounded like someone taking a bite of an apple. Crunch. One of the orange apples hanging on the tree disappeared, leaving just the stem. I couldn't help but gasp. I had not seen wrong. There was white mountain fog in all directions, but what I saw and what remained was too clear for it to not be real. Wait, mountain fog. Since when, Your Royal Highness, where are you going? I grabbed the Imperial Prince's sleeves as he started walking out of my holy domain. Demi must have been uncomfortable when I suddenly stood up since he whined. Sorry Demi, I didn't do that on purpose. Father. What? I suddenly had an ominous feeling. Your father passed away. I quickly stood in front of the Imperial Prince and looked at his face. Fuck. His eyes that were always as focused as if they were burning were now oddly glazed. I frantically pulled out a handkerchief and put it around Demi's face while covering my mouth and nose with my sleeve. This was no simple fog. TWSB, Chapter 53. Something You Shouldn't Let Go. 1. What is it, Your Highness? I heard Christelle's clear voice in my ear. I quickly looked away and checked on her. Her blue-gray eyes, which were as clear as usual, were looking right at me. Are you okay, young Lady Sarnez? Excuse me. Of course I'm She could not finish her sentence. The brightness was slowly disappearing from her eyes. I got chills from my back all the way down to my heels. She turned away from me and looked forward, as if she was a puppet on strings. It was as if there was somebody past the 2 apple trees. However, I couldn't even see a small bird, let alone a person, no matter how wide I opened my eyes and searched. Young Lady Sarnez, quote. There was no response. I gulped. There were 2 people in this foggy valley whose eyes were no longer focused while the screams and shouts of people echoed from the other side of the mountain. And, crunch, that damn noise. I clenched my teeth. There were only 4 apples left on the tree now. I was certain that this invisible apple thief was responsible for turning the 2 of them like this despite not having any evidence. The medium was probably this fog. Father, it was all my fault. Imperial Prince Cedric started walking while saying that. I quickly took 1 step in front of him. I didn't have any hands left because I was covering Demi and my faces, but I had to prevent him from leaving the Holy Domain even if I had to kick him to do so. Can you hear me, Your Royal Highness? You should not have sacrificed yourself for me. It should have been me. Please stop saying weird things. I cut him off. His pale face and sunken eyes made me frown. I felt uncomfortable thinking about why this punk was having such a radical thought since he should have been very young when the prince consort left this world. He hasn't spent all this time thinking like this, has he? Sis, why are you here? I heard a shaking voice at that moment. I had an extremely ominous feeling as I turned toward Christelle. Sis, why are you here? You should be living happily after getting married like that. What are you doing here? Her voice was full of sadness and affection. I felt as if I could not breathe. Both of them seemed to be seeing family members who have departed this world. I could not leave them like this since I didn't know how much stronger the illusions and their emotions might get. I needed to at least temporarily wake them up. Go to brother-in-law because it is dangerous here. Hurry. You can't leave, young Lady Sarnez. Damn it. I quickly extended my leg to stop her. My leg was shaking because the 2 main characters were standing pretty far from each other. Both of you snap out of it. I immediately released a divine oracle. Bright lights shot out from the holy domain that had been subtly releasing golden light to cover the 2 of their bodies. Divine oracle is only effective against living creatures inside the circle, which was why I had no reason to shout when we were fighting the demonic beasts. I could not allow demonic beasts to get within 15 meters of me when I had no physical talents whatsoever. Shah, the holy light soon let the 2 of them go. I could see Christelle's large eyes blinking as the rays of light slowly disappeared. It worked. I sighed in relief. Just now, my older sister. Are you back to your senses? Please quickly cover your mouth and nose. What about you, Your Royal Highness? Christelle quickly pulled a handkerchief out of her pocket. Her eyes were red, but she must have realized what was going on as she did not say anything. As for the Imperial Prince, his orange eyes were burning up when our eyes met. He looked as if he would burn anything he set his eyes on. I couldn't help but feel an instinctual fear crawl down my spine despite knowing that his wrath was not directed at me. His conscience seemed to have returned, but I wasn't sure whether or not he was in a completely rational state. The ether in my body fluctuated anxiously. Wait, is this really mine? How dare you? Please calm down, Your Royal Highness. You need to get a cloth before you see another Alu. A damn demonic beast dares to bring my father. The young man's voice sank low. It was as if it would pierce through the ground. The tips of his black hair were shaking like a bad omen. He was taking the black glove off his left hand. My fingertips were numb with an unexplainable sense of anxiousness. You cannot attack it right now, Your Royal Highness. The monster is still hiding, so it will be dangerous if you leave the holy domain. You will quickly see another illusion because of the fog. The young lady has some magic tools that can cause explosions, so we should. I will not forgive it. He closed his left hand into the shape of a flower bud. I saw something like this before. Snap. I heard him snap his fingers. Christelle retched and plopped down on the ground. The Imperial Prince and I made eye contact for a while. Crackle. Then there was a fire. The red flame that burst out of the man's hand was furiously engulfing everything outside my holy domain. The fog, valley, trees, moss, grass, forest, and ground, everything was quickly becoming dyed red like blood. He seemed to be doing as he pleased. It was as if he was a child while being as ruthless as a tyrant. My head felt hot just watching him do this. I was sorta blanking out because of the intense heat. Screech. The demonic beast that had been hiding itself screeched in pain. Boom, boom. I could hear something large falling down. Someone's ether was pulsating violently. But that was not the end. Crew. Grr. Grr. Key. I jerked my head up. From the top, side, and foot of the mountain. There were demonic beasts writhing in the throes of death. Some of them seemed to be coming from quite far away, while others sounded quite close. The mountain peak, which was somewhat visible in the distance, was burning up as if a signal fire had been lit. The Imperial Prince's wrath seemed to have completely dominated the Marquis mountain range. The dry air was burning my throat. I was full of both shock and confusion. Why did he hide this kind of power until now? Screech, screech, screech. Oops. Demi, are you okay? I calmed the red panda that was burrowing into my chest and shoved the handkerchief into my pocket. My heart sank looking at the shaking Demi while I was unable to figure out what to do. He shouldn't be seeing an illusion since the fog was burned away. Is he maybe scared of the fire? Wait a minute. A red warning light flashed in my mind a little bit late. I immediately turned my head. Your Royal Highness, please stop. It is dangerous if you use so much ether like this. I heard a plop as a small body fell toward me. I grabbed the young boy out of reflex. At the same time, crackle, the fires of his wrath that had been brutally gobbling up the mountain range scattered as if it had just been a mirage. I couldn't believe it even after having seen it with my own eyes. Billions of sparks rode the spring breeze and slowly disappeared in the sunlight. The small sparks filled my view. It seemed as if nothing big happened and it was all just a moment of capriciousness. All that was left in front of me was. It really makes no sense, even after seeing it again. The lush mountain. Christelle seemed a bit out of it as she mumbled to herself. I didn't let go of the heated body that was leaning against my leg as I looked around. The fire ether that had only delivered its judgment onto the demonic beasts on this vast mountain disappeared after only roasting the gravel and rocks. I could not understand what I just saw. The power was tremendous, but the control he had over it was even more shocking. I could not close my open jaw. Screech. Demi quickly jumped out of my arms and stuck to Christelle's leg. I finally looked down at the child who was burning up. I couldn't breathe. My tongue felt so stiff that I could not say anything. The fainted kid should not open his eyes, but I knew the color of this punk's eyes. His black hair and his stubbornly closed lips were familiar. I carefully lowered him down. The large clothes wrapped around the young boy fluttered. His forehead was completely wet with dry sweat like I had seen before. Sadie. I quietly called out the Imperial Prince's name. Asterisk. My lord, the fire is disappearing. My goodness, oh Almighty God. The Almighty God is protecting the Empire. My goodness, it is a miracle. My goodness. The thousands of people in the stands were crying and shouting loudly. Both nobles and commoners were cheering and throwing things into the air. Applause, whistles, praise and prayers, along with hugs and comfort filled the plains. Francois Duham was looking toward the dungeon with a look of devastation. The unbelievable event that had just happened was clearly the Imperial Prince's power. He was certain about it because nobody else in the Empire had ever used fire attribute ether before. No, the Imperial Prince was the only person in the entire Empire who was born with the qualifications to be a holy knight. The fact that he publicly displayed his abilities was a joyous occasion and an emotional event. However, his chest felt suffocated. The Marquis raised a fist and patted above his ribs. The precious young man should have turned into a child now. And the only person he could rely on right now was a royal priest from the Holy Kingdom, who was here as a diplomatic hostage. Even if the Imperial Prince and Cardinal trust him, even if he too had chosen to accept the prince, the Marquis couldn't help but be anxious as a vassal now that the situation had turned like this. Maybe I should go back up. Hey mister, don't meddle with it and just sit down. You're making my head hurt. He heard a distinct voice. He quickly turned around. Elizabeth, who was leaning against an outdoor bed, was looking up at him with a splint on her arm. How is your arm? It doesn't hurt. Can't you speak with some sincerity since young Master Clamart is listening as well? Elizabeth's spirit finally seemed to be subdued as she looked to the side. Gonal, who had not left her side from the moment she descended the mountain, still had tear marks on his face. She did not feel good thinking that she made him worry for no reason. It's not even a big injury. The healing priest put the bones back in their proper places and said that I should heal quickly since I am healthy. The painkiller Prince Jesse gave me was quite effective too. You packed that for him, right? Excuse me. Yes I did. Gonal's honey-colored eyes curled up. She was relieved that he was the type who could easily smile even when he had been crying. The young countess continued speaking without any hesitation. Whatever is happening up there right now, all of it was done because His Royal Highness trusts Prince Jesse. That is why you should just calm down and watch, old man. This is the best seat, isn't it? Seat. We need to watch him pull out the sword of wisdom. I'm going to grab Benjamin Nim to take your seat if you leave. Why, you wouldn't dare. The Marquis quickly sat his butt down on the chair. Elizabeth let out a quiet sigh. Is it really okay for someone like this to hold a Marquis position? There's a signal up there in the sky. Please go rescue them. Asterisk. I felt completely embarrassed. That was the conclusion I came to after careful deliberation. I wanted to die from embarrassment. Wow, I guess some people's bodies shrink from ether depletion. It does seem that way. He's a total angel when he's asleep. He's so pretty. Christelle saw the sleeping sad, Imperial P. Anyway, she poked the little kid's cheeks. I had laid the child down on top of the holy domain and was holding one of his elbows. The punk had used so much ether that even physical contact was not filling his ether quickly. Damn it, I need this punk to return to his normal size. I need to do that whether he continues with the competition or descends the mountain. I did my best to think as rationally as possible despite the situation making me want to go crazy. Did you know about this, Your Highness? Did you know that His Royal Highness uses ether? I think this is my first time seeing it. It wasn't a lie. I had only seen him use it in his young body before. Holy shit, is this less than Detective Conan greater than or something? Then I guess I was really the only outsider who knew about this. I was wondering why he had so many conditions for using ether, but it must be because he turns into a child like this. Why didn't you let me in on the secret too? I kept that nonsensical grudge in my heart and maintained a calm look on my face. The Imperial Prince's secret that Christelle was talking about was ether. The situation would have been a million times better if I knew that and Christelle knew the secret that I knew. I was so sad that my throat felt stuffy. I guess he had no choice but to hide it. This child looks almost identical to his adult self. Anybody would be able to tell that this is His Royal Highness. It would have been a big weakness given his position. Quote. I felt my ears getting hot from shame. Isn't it normal to think that two similarly looking people are family? Am I in the wrong? People who don't know the situation might analyze it differently, don't you think? Maybe if their personality or their words and actions were different, But I don't think that His Royal Highness would put on an act like that. Please stop stabbing the dagger deeper. I'm going to die. Demi was roaming around us, trying to talk to the sleeping child. Now that I think about it, Demi should have known about it as well. How can I look him in the face when he wakes up? Should I just bite my tongue and kill myself? Would I be able to return home if I did that? TWSB, Chapter 54, Something You Shouldn't Let Go, 2. I was grinding my teeth but still carefully put my hand on the kid's forehead. At least his fever seems to have gone down quite a bit. His breathing seemed quite settled as well. You seem quite used to looking after a child, Your Highness. Christelle commented in a light tone. I was feeling embarrassed despite her seemingly uncaring tone. An excuse burst out from me like I was a vending machine that had been fed some coins. This is not because I helped this punk out a few times already. I have a younger sister. Ah, I heard about it. You have an older sister and a younger sister. That is correct. I didn't think that Prince Jesse and the two princesses had a good sibling relationship, but it was the perfect excuse for this situation. I mean, it is true that I have a younger sibling. I checked the young boy's condition with a side glance as I hugged Demi, who was climbing onto my lap. Now that I think about it, earlier, you seemed to be having a hard time. It was the same for Demi. Are you okay now? I asked the question this time. I recalled how Christelle had retched and stumbled down as soon as the Imperial Prince's fires burst out while Demi squirmed out of my arms and ran away to Christelle. The two of them seemed to have naturally recovered once the flames disappeared. Yes, I am okay, Your Highness. My stomach churned for a bit because His Royal Highness's ether overpowering was too much. It was probably something similar for Demi. Ether overpowering, I had read about such a concept occurring between holy knights. I had only skimmed through it as it didn't affect me as a priest, so I had no idea it would affect a divine beast like Demi as well. Do I need to read through it thoroughly when I go back to the Imperial Palace? Christelle observed my expression before smiling and standing up. I did not stop her from walking out of my holy domain. The Imperial Prince had killed all of the demonic beasts on the mountain. The overpowering ether was incredibly strong, but his control is amazing, being able to target only the demonic beasts. It is lighting up my competitive spirit seeing that His Royal Highness is so strong. A competitive spirit should be a good thing, right? I nodded my head at her comment. Some sort of emotion, whatever it may be, has to be the foundation if the two main characters were to start dating in the future. They do say that the opposite of love is indifference. I would happily welcome anything as long as they weren't indifferent towards each other right now. Wow, it smells good too. Demi, you could grow your own orchard in the future. Christelle admired Demi's work and pulled off the remaining 4 apples from the apple trees. The mountain was peaceful and completely fine. I could even hear some birds chirping nearby. Nobody would believe that there had been a fire here if we got rid of the few rocks that had been charred black. Christelle returned to the holy domain with the apples and continued speaking. There is something I am curious about as well. You did not seem to have seen an illusion, Your Highness. Yes, I find that part to be odd as well. It was shocking that the circle that is supposed to nullify all powers did not have an air purification portion, but the thing that I was more concerned about were the effects of the illusions. His Royal Highness was the first to react to the fog. You were next, young Lady Sarnez. Demi didn't have much a reaction because I covered his face with a cloth, or it might be different for him because he is a divine beast. However, it did not seem to have much effect on me. I'm sure that I must have breathed in the fog as well. This is just my hypothesis, but... Christelle pushed forward 3 apples. I broke one of the orange apples in half and handed one to Demi. He grabbed it with his front paw and started eating happily. Crunch, crunch. Thank you very much. Anyway, I wonder if having high mana sensitivity makes it easier to fall under that bastard's illusions. That was the only explanation I could come up with about the differences in the 3 of our reactions. My mana sensitivity was at the bottom in terms of sensitivity, so it was possible that I could not see the illusion despite the demonic beast shoving it in my face. I should be relieved about it, but it was a bit sad. That seems possible. His Royal Highness is a mage, so it is possible that his illusion might have been more vivid than mine. Then it makes sense why he became so angry. She nodded her head and took a big bite of a blue-gray apple. What should we do if the same bastard comes down again? I doubt it. There's nothing saying it can't happen. That bastard's family or friends might chase after us for revenge. Christelle pointed toward the end of the valley. A demonic beast that seemed to be a mix of a centipede and a scorpion was dead on its belly, scorched black while lying between the two apple trees. It was the size of a large door even looking at it from here. I scowled and turned back to look at Christelle. I think it is best to temporarily push the fog back using your explosion magic tool, young Lady Sarnez. Yes, Your Highness. However, it will probably only be momentary. The magic tools being sold at the Ligo Central Commerce Center have all been inspected and they are all only for party use. Excuse me, party use. It would be dangerous if they caused large explosions. They do not sell weapons. That seems weird. Then what happened in Lucas Village? You pretended to burn up the whole inn. You said that you bought a fake flames magic tool. I scrunched my eyes. Christelle smiled and moved her shoulder back. I quickly looked down at the sleeping boy and then back at her. A thunderbolt-like realization smacked me in the back. These little punks. Did His Royal Highness use his abilities at that time? Then the one who sucked out my ether that day. Your Highness, please listen. No wonder the Imperial Prince grabbed my neck. No wonder it felt similar to when Sadie jacked my ether. His Royal Highness said that he needed to receive your ether, Your Highness. He said it could absolutely not be anybody other than you. However, he also said that you must not find out that he was the one who took the ether. I wanted to help the villagers, but our esteemed Royal Highness had so many conditions, that was why I had no choice. I had to get in between the two of you and lie to you, but it was with good intentions. You, listen to that damn glib tongue. I was wrong to do that, Your Highness. I'm sorry. I couldn't help but sigh. What good would it do to get angry about it now? What good would it do to get annoyed? Is that why the two of you walked around stuck to each other the whole time? It was so that you could come up with such a plan. We did not stick to each other the whole time. It is difficult for both of us when we are close to each other. She had a serious look on her face. I'm pretty sure I'm the one here having the most difficult time. From now on, please just tell me if you need ether. I will not accept any lies. Yes, sir, but please inform His Royal Highness about it as well. Why are you only saying that to me? He's sleeping right now. I sharply cut her off. Christelle's blue-gray eyes blinked a few times as she nodded her head. I looked up at the sky because I felt frustrated. The clear and blue sky made me even sadder today. Was QNW a caretaker Romfan? I didn't hear about the MC having a kid, but why do I feel like I suddenly have two kids? If that illusion demonic beast appears again, I will put both of you to sleep with my divine oracle and descend the mountain with the two of you on my backs if I have to. It is none of my business whether you dig out the sword of wisdom in your sleep or give up through sleep talking. I have no choice since I cannot fight. Please keep that in mind. The divine item didn't grant my wish anyway, and Sadie, the kid I wanted to help, was actually Imperial Prince Cedric. Damn it. I had no reason to care about this competition anymore. That might be too heavy. I am tall. I am also stronger than the average person. It's 3 including Demi. Christelle looked as if it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe that she was talking back to me like this. It was as if she had already forgotten about her terrible deeds. It was at that moment. Your Highness, His Royal Highness is. I quickly turned my head to look at the little kid. Small golden pebbles were floating up from the young boy's body. It was the symbol of being fully charged that I was now familiar with. The little kid had always left my balcony whenever it got to this point. Yes, no wonder he left right away. He couldn't let me see his body suddenly growing in size. Damn it. Although the bastard who hid it was to blame, the embarrassment was mine in the end. Would it have been better to ask if he had a hidden younger sibling instead of a son? Is that pretty much the same thing? Young Lady Sarnez. I opened my mouth. Yes, Your Highness. Similar to how you have a secret with His Royal Highness, can we keep this a secret as well? Excuse me. She was staring at me. She seemed to not understand what I was saying. The fact that His Royal Highness turned into a child, I hope you can pretend not to know. Oh my, I am a diplomatic hostage. Learning such an important secret of the imperial family is a threat to me. The reason Her Majesty lets me be is probably because I am a powerless prince. The words simply flowed out of my mouth now that I had made up my mind. I slightly bit down on my shaking lips. The biggest reason I couldn't admit to knowing this was because I was embarrassed, but I absolutely could not share that part with Christelle. Vice Captain Elizabeth's smiling face that had turned to tears was still vivid in my mind. Damn it. So you're saying we shouldn't inform His Royal Highness about what happened today? Yes, well, how about we just say that he fainted from ether depletion and that I helped him? I could feel both of my cheeks getting flushed. Even I could tell that this was a petty trick. Christelle tilted her head in confusion. It doesn't matter to me since I am good at lying, but... Are you sure you should be so proud about that? Will it be okay for you, Your Highness? Yes, it will. I responded confidently. I'm adjusting pretty well to this transmigrated life, so I should be able to lie if I shut up. Anything would be better than the Imperial Prince bastard sneering at me and looking at me with scorn. Our contact should cease again when we return to the Imperial Palace anyway. Then that sounds great. I'm glad I have a friend with whom I can share a secret. Christelle shook her pink hair and smiled brightly. I got the chills hearing her use the term, friend. I didn't bring this up so that we can get close to each other. Bang! There was a loud noise at the top of the mountain at that moment. Christelle jumped up. I quickly gathered our things. After that, Rune, hurry! I could hear other competitors screaming and warning others at a distance. Boom, plop plop. I heard something that sounded like rocks falling. It looks like the third wave has started. Christelle commented while grabbing her whip. I urgently looked toward the child lying down. His fever is completely down. Holy shit, he's fully grown. I quickly pulled my hand off the bastard's cheek and rubbed it against my shirt. The ether pebbles in the air had disappeared as well. Damn it, when did he grow past 190 centimeters again? How is His Royal Highness? His body has returned to normal but he is still unconscious. Will you be okay on your own, young Lady Sarnez? Please just leave it to me. Her water-colored eyes were sparkling. The whip that will always remind people of her was sparkling dangerously in the afternoon sun. Christelle mumbled in a low voice. They're coming. Asterisk. Wow, he's so damn heavy. I'm going to pull my back. Screech. The red panda pushed down on my shoulders with his front paws as if to cheer me on. I was stumbling with two healthy adults, one male and one female, on my back. I lowered my head to see the large green leaf that was wrapped around Christelle, the Imperial Prince bastard, and my waist. It was tied down with sturdy vines so there seemed to be no chances of it becoming undone. The two others were asleep and I could only hear their breathing. I lightly scoffed, thinking about how long it had been since I had done this. Demi had created this baby carrier for me. The demonic beasts are the bane of all evil, the bane of all evil I tell you. They are the ones who made this happen. I clenched my teeth. I confirmed that Demi's nose and mouth were covered properly with a handkerchief before starting our plan. Things were hard to see because of the fog, but the immediate area around me was quite clear. Yes, it was this damn fog. Shit. Screech. You really showed up because I talked about it. I shouted at the demonic beast in front of me. The bastard was clicking its large claws and stood up in a threatening manner. I was safe because of my holy domain, but I still took a step back out of reflex. My stomach felt a bit off. It mainly looked like a scorpion but its tail looked closer to a centipede. Its shiny, dark brown body was about the size of a Ramaikan mixer truck. It seemed at least 20 meters long even from the front. It looked as if it might be the parent of the bastard the Imperial Prince burned to death earlier. The difference between their sizes was tremendous. Screech. Okay, wait. I mumbled and rummaged through my bag. If this bastard didn't show up, if it had not spread its illusion fog, if it had not come with other demonic beasts, something like this would not have happened. 2 apples were soon in my hand. They were the 2 apples that were left for the Imperial Prince and me. Of course, it will be that bastard's snack now. You like apples too, right? Like the dead bastard over there. Isn't that why you came here? I said some cruel things and lifted up the apples. Screech. Keo. The bastard's reddish-brown eyes fluttered non-stop and looked all around. There was something white that looked like saliva dripping out of its mouth. I clenched my eyes shut before opening them back up. I was scared, but it was time to head down. Here's the bus fare. I threw 1 apple high in the air. I then released my holy domain. TWSB, Chapter 55, Something You Shouldn't Let Go, 3. Bang, boom boom, boom, hey, a bit more gentle, go more gently. Eek, I almost bit my tongue. The speed was too fast and the slope of the mountain was much steeper than I had expected. Boom, boom, my body was bobbing up and down despite having the weight of Christelle and the Imperial Prince on my back. I was tightly hugging Demi with one arm while clenching the reins tightly with my other arm and lowering my body. Demi also made this with his vines. Holy shit. Isn't that a cliff over there? Left turn, left turn. Ah, screech. The demonic beast's long tail and poison sting were shaking as it flew up in between the cliffs. You don't even have wings. My brain felt as if it was floating, I got chills even in my eardrums, and my heart felt as if it had fallen under my feet. The T-Express roller coaster in Everland was child's play compared to this. Screech. Demi, it's okay. At least Big Bro will be going with you even if we die. I knew that I shouldn't say things like that to a kid. The words coming out of my mouth were not normal, but that was probably because of the crazy situation. I looked down to see an endless dark valley with its jaws wide open. I clenched my eyes shut and internally prayed to be saved. Swoosh. The valley wind touched us as it passed by. I could hear the 2 annoying pests breathing on my neck as they soundly slept. Bong. Screech. Our bus safely landed on the other side of the cliff. I didn't have any time to catch my breath as I grabbed the second and final apple. Things had gone according to my plan up until now. At least my luck was extremely high thanks to having both MCs on my back. Here's the extra fare. I threw the blue-gray apple to the front, which made the scorpion or centipede or whatever it is illusion beast accelerate again. I gulped after feeling my body start to lean. This thing was crazy for apples. The bastard had charged at us in the valley as soon as I threw an apple at it, and... Screech, screech. Wow, its shell is so slippery. I really don't like it. It had followed the rolling apple like crazy until now. It had not paid any attention to the fact that Demi and I were on its back. The demonic beast charged through tall trees and grass at full speed, climbed up and down boulders all while clicking its claws nonstop. At this point, I even felt some pity for its foaming mouth. Did generations of this monster get haunted by a ghost that died unable to eat an apple? Kit. The bastard's reaction suddenly changed from before and it stopped. I peeked to the side of its body to see if the apple got caught in between 2 rocks or something. What I saw was, thankfully, something that was much better news. We're here. I could see 2 large white tents at the edges of my foggy view. They were the thousands of spectators on the wide plains in front of the Doom Lord's castle. The sword of wisdom from the flaming star seemed to have finally stuck the demonic beast's nerve. I was now certain that this bastard would charge straight toward the stadium with or without the apple. That was good. The great clearance of demonic beasts was almost over. Wah! Hooray! Hooray! I could hear faint cheering from the distance. I had no way of knowing whether the spectators noticed us. I caught my breath for a moment and did my best to look behind myself. I could see the demonic beast's tail and poison stinger looking like the end of a brush while shaking behind the pink and black heads of hair. Demi, we need to take care of that. Squee. I whispered to him. I was sure it was that. I had to make at least the minimum amount of preparations before waking up the 2 MCs and definitely before this damn stupid scorpion turned the competition into a mess. Ah, screech. Grr, Kit. My head jerked back. The bastard let out the most aggressive noises I had ever heard from it before charging forward. I tightly clenched the reins and did my best to not lose my balance. I quickly rummaged through the bag with my other hand. Asterisk. Please wake up now, both of you. He thought that he heard someone whispering those words. Plop. Cedric Ryester felt stiffness throughout his whole body as he slowly opened his eyes. However, things looked hazy. He couldn't tell whether he was still dreaming or if he had regained his consciousness. Even things like where he had last been or what he had been doing were not clear. Everything was quiet. It was as if he was buried in a pile of ashes. He slowly moved his fingertips. Crackle. Flinch. The Imperial Prince jerked his body up as if he had been electrocuted. Small flames were crackling and disappearing non-stop at his fingertips when he looked down at his left hand. It was his bare hand. He did not see the strong magic tool that helped him just barely block the unstable flow of his ether day after day. His fingertips were like craters that could release embers at any moment without his glove. He frowned. It was dangerous like this. He was too much an ominous presence. Quote. He could finally see his surroundings. His surroundings were opaque and foggy. He remembered that he had seen something similar to this before he fainted as well. To be more specific, Father, it was all my fault. You should not have sacrificed yourself for me. It should have been me. There was a person with long black hair and eyes as dark blue as the deep sea. Prince Consort Alexander looked as he had been on the day he left this world. He was even wearing the same clothes. The way his eyes curled up gently and his considerate words were full of affection for his young son. It's okay, Sadie. It's nice and warm thanks to your flames. It was the way he always looked whenever he appeared in the Imperial Prince's nightmares until a few months ago. His instincts told him it was an illusion. It was some petty trick by a damn demonic beast. However, he had been unable to control his shaking emotions and raging wrath. How dare you? A damn demonic beast dares to bring my father. I will not forgive it. Everything had turned red after that. The world had burnt up in red and the inside of his head was boiling to the point that he could not comprehend anything. The marquee land and mountain were completely covered in fire. The screams of animals and what sounded like someone trying to console him mixed together, confusing his ears. His cursed power had gone berserk. All because he couldn't hold in his stupid anger one time. He had killed numerous people. Killing just his father had not been enough. However, there was fog once again. He couldn't breathe properly. That painful illusion could return at any moment and turn him into a monster. It will continue to do so until he burned up everything in the world until there was nothing left. It will continue to do so until the valley that was now only dry dirt was covered in ashes like falling snow. The Imperial Prince clenched his left hand. Your Royal Highness, I ask for your cooperation if you are done resting. He jerked his head up. Cedric looked up at the direction of the voice. Is your condition still not well? I'm sure I gave you plenty of ether. He could see blood on the pale forehead of this person that was visible through the gaps in his now messy golden hair. He looked into the purple eyes that were sparkling like amethysts. This guy was speaking in a concerned tone when he was the one who was injured. Quote. The world suddenly turned chaotic as if everything had been a lie. His ears were finally working again. Woo, Your Highness, I will take care of the entrance area. Sarnez, Sarnez, Sarnez. The cheering of thousands of people who were riled up by the excitement of the great clearance slammed against his ears. Then the sound of a heavy wave and Cristel de Sarnez's voice struck him from the front and back. It seemed as if he was at a crowded beach. He was at least certain that they were not at the mountain he had burnt up. It felt as if he had been teleported. This is the stadium. We have descended the mountain. I am here, so please feel free to use your powers as much as you like. This fog. It is just water vapor that has fallen to the ground. It is just a normal fog. I cut off the scorpion demonic beast's poison stinger so it can't release that illusion. Damn it. Bang. A demonic beast that had cut through the fog attacked the prince's circle. The prince seemed quite shocked despite it not doing much damage. Cedric watched him as he slowly got up. His bones ached as if he had rolled down a hill. Crackle, crackle. The prince must have heard the fire as he looked down at Cedric's left hand. It made Cedric's heart ache. This guy should know everything now too. He should have experienced the truth of my terrible curse as it happened right in front of his nose. Are you scared? No, it's just that. He had a concerned look on his face. I left your glove behind, Your Royal Highness. I completely forgot to pick it up. Quote. It's a fire, so I think it would be nice and warm in the winter. You'll never have to worry about your hands being cold. The prince smiled and adjusted the divine beast in his arms. Bang! The demonic beast slammed against the holy domain once again. It looked to be a mix of a wolf and a lion. Its mana didn't seem strong, so it was probably one of the peons that reacted to the Sword of Wisdom's ether and came down. Demi, do you want to do it? Should we go, bad boy, and scold him? Squeal. The divine beast raised both paws. The imperial prince silently observed green vines shooting up from the dirt of the plains. The demonic beast was coughing in pain as it was choked, but, oddly, he felt as if his breathing was getting easier. Young Lady Sarnez will steal the victory from you if you continue to blank out and just stand there, Your Royal Highness. The prince commented to him. Cedric finally blinked once. Oh, the spectators were cheering with excitement. He could hear water slapping around in the distance. Over there is the Sword of Wisdom from the Flaming Star. The prince pointed behind the imperial prince with his hand, but he did not turn around. The presence of the Sword of Wisdom was so strong that he could feel it even if all 5 of his senses were blocked. However, nothing would be purer than the ether in the plate located in front of his eyes right now. I guess you really are not afraid. I already told you that I am quite a strong priest when we were going up the mountain, Your Royal Highness. I am not running away. The imperial prince let out a small breath. It almost sounded like a laugh. He quickly reached his left hand out and placed it on the prince's head. A warm flame touched the bloody forehead. The prince sounded anxious at the sudden development. Hold on. What? Don't forget. The imperial prince ruthlessly pulled at the prince's ether. The purple eyes were looking at him as if he was a madman. Why are you taking even more when I gave you a ton earlier? You were the one who said that you will not run away. I won't let you go. His orange eyes were fluctuating. This was his last and only chance. Asterisk. Seriously, that shithead is a total crazy bastard. I was dizzy. It wasn't to the point of fainting, but I was certain that I had been left with just enough ether left in me to stay conscious. I had twisted my right leg a bit when I was sent flying from the scorpion demonic beast earlier, so it was almost too difficult to remain standing. I slowly lowered my body and sat down. Ego, my body aches. Screech, screech, screech. Big bro is okay. The problem is that the damn imperial prince's head is not okay. The imperial prince's eyes definitely seemed crazy right before he left. Demi groaned and crawled up my chest. He seemed so concerned that I couldn't help but laugh. These injuries would be easily healed if a healing priest helped me. It was a bit disappointing that you could not use healing powers on yourself. Screech. This is really the end. Christelle's energetic shouts echoed throughout the stadium. I kept my legs stretched out and only turned my upper body to look toward her direction. I could see a figure energetically shoot up into the air in the middle of the dim stadium. Her blue jacket fluttered in the wind. There was an extremely long water spear floating at her right. Her target was the scorpion demonic beast who already had its 2 claws melted away by holy water. Ha! Screech. The floating Christelle vigorously flicked her whip forward. The spear shot forward at the same time. The moment thousands of spectators gasped with sweaty palms. Ong! The air shook a bit. Ba-ba-ba-bang. Ah! Then a large aftershock filled the stadium. I fell to the ground from my seated position. I could taste sand in my mouth. I hugged Demi out of reflex and curled up into a ball. Cough, 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 cough. Suddenly ingesting dust made me start coughing. I was dumbfounded as to what might have happened. Was it a demonic beast? But all of the beasts other than the scorpion demonic beast were weak. The imperial prince roasted all of the demonic beasts that had come from the first and second waves, so only a small handful had made it down to the stadium. The great clearance is over. A familiar low voice pierced through the crowd. I got up even with my body creaking and looked for the owner of the voice. I noticed that I could see clearly again. The earlier blast seemed to have gotten rid of the fog. It's His Royal Highness. His Royal Highness, he. One of the spectators broke the tense silence and shouted. The woman's voice was cracking with excitement. Astonishment, admiration, fear, and reverence spread through the audience like wildfire. The man was standing where the Sword of Wisdom had been, arrogantly looking down at the plain. I blankly looked at the Imperial Prince. To be more specific, I was looking at the sharp, black divine item in his left hand. Ho, look at this bastard taking the prize even before he is declared the winner. That's cheating, Your Royal Highness. Christelle laughed in disbelief as she shouted. She was rolling around on the ground as well. The Imperial Prince moved the hand holding the sword to his chest, showing no reaction as to whether he heard her or not. And then, crackle, the sword caught on fire from the end of its hilt to the tip of its blade. It was the exact same color as his eyes. TWSB, Chapter 56, Frederick Reister 1. I predicted that it would have a special ability because it is a divine item, but I never expected the sword to light up with flames at the master's will. The flame seemed more like a candle dancing in the wind than a burning fire, but that seemed to be the Imperial Prince's will as well. Without any hesitation, Imperial Prince Cedric bent his left arm, moving the Sword of Wisdom that he was holding. He's not planning on. I slowly felt as if I could predict his next action. The thousands of nobles and commoners were all silent as they focused their gazes solely on him. Screech. Grr, grr. The still-alive scorpion demonic beast happened to act up at that moment. The few remaining demonic beasts all snapped out of it as well and were shaking their heads. I noticed that there were a lot of competitors who had managed to safely make it down to the stadium. Christelle's eyes were sparkling with interest. Screech. Kit. Kit. Key. How loud. The Imperial Prince slashed his sword horizontally as he said that. And then. Ong. The air shook once again. I knew that his flame would not attack me, but I still lowered my head and hid Demi in my arms. The heated sword aura brushed past my hair. Bong. Crackle. It was in the form of a wave. This wave just happened to be made of holy flame instead of holy water, with the large house-sized flame quickly swallowing the stadium. However, water and fire were fundamentally different. As the fire quickly burned up the air. Ba-ba-ba-bang. There was an aftershock. A typhoon-like wind burst to life on top of the crying ground. The spectators covered their heads and lowered their bodies. I could see things like hats and towels flying up into the air. I clenched my eyes shut. I, naturally, expected to fall and start rolling. It's okay, Your Highness. However, I heard a warm voice at that moment. I opened my eyes to see a large shield in front of me. To be more specific, it was a wall of clear water. I could see the Imperial Prince's silhouette through the splashing surface of the water wall. No shock had managed to reach me at all. Young Lady Sarnez. His Royal Highness seems excited. I understand, since I felt the same way when I first used my abilities. It was an unbelievable speed. Christelle, who had almost instantly moved in front of me and cast the barrier, brushed back the few strands of hair that had fallen as she smiled. I was about to thank her when CRAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA demonic beasts filled the stadium. I quickly turned my head and looked behind me. Boom. Thud. Bong. Demonic beasts both large and small were swept up in the red flame, falling to the ground one by one. Everything other than the demonic beasts were left untouched. The other competitors, who had been shocked by the Imperial Prince's overwhelming might, dropped their weapons and looked toward us. Their faces looked chaotic as they were filled with both awe and admiration. Nobody dared to say anything or even move. There was a moment of silence that could have lasted a few seconds or a few minutes, I couldn't tell. Christelle slowly deactivated her water wall. The great clearance was over. It was as the Imperial Prince had said. The winner of the Great Clearance of Demonic Beasts for the year 1613 of the Holy Calendar is His Royal Highness, Cedric Riester. Marquis Francois Duhem's shaking voice echoed through the territory. There was a short break before. Woo! 3 cheers for His Royal Highness. Long live the Riester! Hooray! Hooray! Victory! 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 The shouts of thousands of spectators fired up with excitement slammed against my ears. Their clapping sounded like fireworks. I became excited even though it had nothing to do with me. Everybody was so excited that their cheeks were flushed red. Rain gently started falling from the spring sky. The Imperial Prince had walked up to me at some point and was silently looking down at me. A bouquet that someone threw from the stands fell right at my feet just as I made eye contact with him. Demi recognized the person and started wagging his tail. I turned my gaze and looked toward the direction the bouquet had flown from. "It's Vice Captain Elizabeth," Christelle shouted in a clear voice. Gonal and Benjamin were with the young countess as well. The three of them were energetically waving their arms and smiling. Marquis Duham, who was right behind them, was busy wiping his tears with a handkerchief. Ha 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 ha, I started laughing. I could feel Demi's warm body around my shoulders and cheek. My whole body felt numb like I had been punched all around and my clothes were a mess, but I thought that it wasn't a bad first outing if it was just this. A single light pink flower petal landed in front of the Imperial Prince's boots. Asterisk. I didn't even remember how we got back to the Imperial Palace. Ow. I barely turned my tired body over to lay down on the other side. My bleeding forehead and sprained right leg were quickly healed thanks to a healing priest. However, we left the Lord's castle the day after the great clearance ended, which was why my body was still full of fatigue. It will probably take a long time to recover from both the mental and physical stress I experienced in the past 2 weeks. I needed to do my best and quickly think about how I can get back home, but I felt as if I wouldn't be able to think about anything for a while. Screech. Demi, let's lay here a little longer. It's only 10 a.m. I moved the divine beast that was pushing down on my arm on top of my stomach. My arms and legs slumped down as the tension finally released after lying on my familiar bed for the first time in a long while. I officially received time off for the next week, so I plan to only eat and play every day on repeat. Knock knock. Come in. However, the people around me were too diligent. I smiled at the two figures carefully walking into the room. I guess 11 hours is a long time to sleep. My bed curtains were soon opened and Gonal's honey-colored eyes were looking at me with concern. Good morning, Prince Jesse. Are you perhaps not feeling well? Should I call the Imperial doctor? No, I'm fine. I'm just a bit tired. Good morning, Gonal. I was trying not to wake you up, but you've been sleeping for over 12 hours. Your Highness, I came in because I was concerned. The young boy's voice became quieter. I looked back at the clock in shock to see that it was long past 11 and not 10. The last thing I remembered was washing up and falling on my bed as soon as I got home yesterday. I seemed to have completely knocked out. Okay, I should get up now since my back might hurt if I sleep any longer. I immediately sat up. Gonal smiled with a look of relief on his face. Benjamin, who had opened the window curtains, greeted me benignly as well. Did you sleep well, Your Highness? I did. Did you sleep well, Benjamin? The balcony door was soon opened. There was a cool breeze and the comfortable spring rays of the sun brightened the inside of the room. After that, it was back to the regular life that I had desired. It was the start of the chaotic Juliet Palace brunch. It's so delicious. I'm glad that I am still alive. Why, Your Highness? Why would you say something like that? Gonal, who was seated across from me, gasped at my comment. I smiled brightly and took a large bite of my omelette with caviar. The egg that might have felt greasy on an empty stomach mixed with the scent of the ocean and the sour cream to create a nice refreshing taste. The smoothness of it melting in my mouth without even biting down and the feeling of the eggs popping on top of it was amazing as well. The chefs at the Duham March and Romero Palace were talented as well, but nobody could match the skills of Lawrence, the chef of Juliet Palace. It was simply perfectly adjusted to my preferences. But I really am glad that you are safe, Your Highness. I was so shocked when you descended the mountain with His Royal Highness and young Lady Sarnez on your back. Benjamin placed a piece of toast with a lot of ratatouille on top onto my plate. I felt embarrassed and lowered my head. I had no choice but to come down. I also had to put the two of them to sleep. You came down on a demonic beast, Your Highness. Gonal's voice had gone up a notch. The anxiety and excitement from that time seemed to be fused together in his gaze. You looked so cool, but I was so scared, Your Highness. I was worried that something would go wrong. Oh right, everybody in the Imperial Palace wishes to meet you, Your Highness. Even the knights of the temple came by this morning to ask how you were doing. The young boy moved his fork to stab the ham crepe. My eyes opened a bit. To see me? Why, well, the rumors spread while we were on our way back to the Imperial Palace. They're talking about how you came down with the clouds on a dragon the size of a fortress and awakened His Royal Highness and young Lady Sarnez with the power of love. It was not a dragon. I also didn't use that kind of power. It doesn't matter. Young Lady Sarnez opened her eyes, and splash. She used holy water to swipe the demonic beasts away. Then His Royal Highness looked so cool as he pulled out the Sword of Wisdom from the flaming star, and then it created a large waterfall and a hot spring in front of the Duum Lord's castle. The Almighty God's joy had flooded down. Gonal explained with excitement. The young boy's spoon moved vigorously, making Benjamin calmly reach his hand out and stop him from saying anything else. I looked back and forth at the two of them with shock. I couldn't even fathom how much the truth had become twisted in the 4 days we took to get to the imperial capital. Benjamin, what is he talking about? I only understood this situation this morning as well, Your Highness. He calmly wiped his mouth with a napkin. I wet my throat with some savory mistletoe tea. It was to be expected, but the story of how His Royal Highness was victorious and gained the divine item seems to have already spread throughout the empire. They are saying that it is probably the greatest thing that has happened since His Royal Highness's birth. There are even rumors about how he will be named the Crown Prince during his birthday in August. I guess the people of the Empire are not repulsed at the thought of a divine item being used for personal use. I gently responded, is it because he is the Imperial Prince? His Royal Highness's popularity is one thing, but nobody had been able to pull the Sword of Wisdom out until now. People seem to firmly believe that His Royal Highness was chosen by the Almighty God. Furthermore, with him showing his abilities as a holy knight, I'm sure there are many who believe it is only proper that he uses a divine item. It was understandable thinking about it that way. I nodded my head and took a bite of my toast. The toast crunched, and I could smell the sweet scent of tomatoes as a plethora of flavors coated the tip of my tongue. Furthermore, there is also a holy knight from the house of Sarnez, a duke with the highest authority. A miracle that has not happened even once in the empire for over 1,000 years occurred twice in a day. It is not weird that rumors about these heroes are being spread. Benjamin calmly finished his explanation. I savored the ratatouille in my mouth and quietly thought to myself. Isn't that still too much an exaggeration? This dish would probably be good even if it was cold. I had no idea that His Royal Highness had such divine power. All three of you looked like characters out of mythologies. Everybody was frantically trying to talk to you on our way back to the capital. Did you not notice it, Your Highness? Gonal placed some mendiants on my dessert plate as he chatted away. Did they really? Thanks. I was sleepy the whole way back, so I don't really remember. I answered honestly. We did stop by a few inns on the way back, but they were just rooms to sleep in for me. All I remembered was being made fun of because Christelle needed to escort me off the carriage once, drinking Vice Captain Elizabeth's medicine because I mistook it for tea, and opening the Imperial Prince's room door while I was half asleep and backstepping away. I don't think I was in a proper state of mind. You have to go crazy to achieve things. I learned that there is such a saying, Your Highness. Gonal was looking at me extremely proudly. Is he talking shit about me to my face? I heard some dull knocks on the door at that moment. Knock knock knock. Come in. I called out to them. I haven't had this in a while too. I had not seen the faces of the other attendants at Juliet Palace for a while. Your Highness, the Chief of Staff requests your audience. The Chief of Staff. I could only be happy to see this familiar face for a moment, as my mind turned cold. The Chief of Staff was someone who personally assisted Empress Frederick. She was one of the most influential people in the entire Imperial Palace. It was also someone I had never met since transmigrating into UNW. I peeked at Benjamin and Gonal's faces before nodding my head. A middle-aged woman appeared behind the young attendant. The woman's wheat-colored hair was twisted up without any strands sticking out, and she gave off the overall demeanor of a stern and cold person. Her bow was overflowing with elegance as well. I greet Prince Jesse Venetian with the blessing of the Almighty God. My name is Laura Mendy from the Duke's House of Mendy, and I am the Chief of Staff who serves Her Majesty. Nice to meet you, Laura. I calmly responded. There was only one reason that the Chief of Staff would personally come to Juliet Palace, the palace nicknamed the Cold Palace. It was the will of the Empress. I quickly started to recall any sins I may have caused until now. Did she find out that I called the Imperial Prince a crazy bastard? But that bastard deserves to be called that. Our revered Majesty has officially invited you to the celebration of His Royal Highness, Imperial Prince Cedric's great clearance of demonic beasts victory, Your Highness. Excuse me, Her Majesty has shown great interest and attention to your performance this time and was deeply touched at your courage and goodwill to step up and assist His Royal Highness. As a result, she wishes to personally recognize you at the celebration with the imperial family, the noble households, and important figures in attendance. Personally. TWSB, Chapter 57, Frederick Riester 2. When is the victory celebration? It starts 2 days from now at 7 p.m. We will have everything prepared so that you can come to the Empress Palace by 6 p.m., Your Highness. 2 days. I had no justification for rejecting the offer as I was notified 2 days in advance. The Empress had even sent the Chief of Staff to invite me. You have to be smart about when to use the excuse of illness. Shoving it toward the person who controls my life and feeds me would only make them hate me. Not attending the monthly team dinner was completely different from not attending the annual outing where the company's CEO would be present. I calmly settled myself. I just had to go, quietly eat, and then come back. She says that she wants to give me recognition, but the main focus of the celebration would naturally be the Imperial Prince. I should be able to quickly return to Juliet Palace if I close my eyes and handle a few awkward moments. I understand, I responded to her. The Chief of Staff, Laura Mendy, looked unsurprised, as if she heard the answer she was expecting. I was about to let her go before I thankfully remembered to ask the most important question. Are those people coming over by chance? By those people. The people for my outfit and preparation. I will need to prepare as well if they are coming in the morning. Benjamin and Gonal nodded their heads with looks that seemed to be praising me for asking that question. I needed to prepare my heart if the Empress was going to send the 2 bosses and their teams in the morning. I absolutely did not want them talking about personally washing me or braiding my short hair again. They will not be stopping by. It is a small celebration with only Her Majesty and those close to her. Please come with a relaxed heart and a comfortable outfit. Laura spoke with a slightly laughing tone. I could only blankly nod my head. My fatigue and sleepiness flew away at the Empress's unexpected invitation. My head was spinning quickly. What should I wear? Asterisk. Seriously, what should I wear? Unfortunately, that was the main question I had contemplated up until the day of the celebration. Benjamin, Gonal, and the other attendants who usually helped me out were gathered in the reception room discussing the topic. The few final candidates and their matching shoes were on top of a large couch waiting for our decision. We had 2 hours before I had to leave. I had every desire to just wear whatever, but I didn't think that I could do that when it was the Empress herself personally presiding over the celebration, not just the Imperial Prince. It was similar to how the term, business casual, sounds simple when you are going in for a low-level employee interview, but you start to question the definition and types of business casual when it is for an executive position. I never even dreamt that I would once again experience the feeling that I felt a few years ago, jumping into the job market right after graduation. Especially not upon transmigrating into this romfan. Your Highness, how about just sticking with purple? I am the Prince of Venetian. Go for the, I am the moon of the Holy Kingdom, type of feel. One of the attendants who sips my tea every so often pointed toward the purple formal attire with confidence. However, the other attendants gasped and started talking. Pierre, you know His Highness doesn't like to stand out. That's right, he's so handsome even without doing that, it might also seem too political. Benjamin nodded his head, looking concerned after hearing the political part. Another attendant lifted up the golden formal attire next to him. I was familiar with him because he was the one who often changed my bedsheets and curtains. What about gold, Your Highness? It is a subtle gold color, so it shouldn't catch much attention. He then cautiously put it up against my body. I quietly stood there and received the gazes of the attendants. I guess this one's pretty good. Egu, definitely not. No, no, I heard a lot of groans. I felt awkward and looked at Gonal, who had quite the complicated expression on his face. It goes so well with your hair and your eyes, Your Highness, it makes you look like the main character. Wow, that's a definite no then. I quickly moved my body away. Another attendant lifted up a black formal attire as if he had been waiting for this moment. It had gold and red decorations on it as well. Black is the way to go with formal attire. It is the standard no matter where you go, Your Highness. It is the safest option. He's right, Your Highness. I'm sure some of the nobles will be wearing black as well, making it easy for you to hide in the crowd. The attendant standing next to me added on as well. None of them seemed to find any issues with this black formal attire. I was a bit confused as I responded. This definitely looks like His Royal Highness's style. Ah, the attendants gasped as if they had epiphanies. Wearing black to a celebration with the imperial prince was like wearing white to a wedding. At least it felt that way to me. Some of the attendants rubbed their faces in embarrassment. Was a comfortable outfit supposed to be such a hard choice that it puts me at a loss? The only contact I have had with Empress Frederick was seeing her from a distance during the spring ball last month while I was on the balcony of Strouder Palace. She had never personally summoned me ever since I entered the palace. I had not even received the simplest of greetings. The fact that the Chief of Staff came to Juliet Palace for the first time only 2 days ago said it all. I have heard a lot of things about her, but I had no way of knowing what kind of person the Empress was, what she likes, or what she dislikes. The only things I could remember Jungyun's commenting about the Empress was, "Take me, big sis," and, "So cool. She's beautiful." She was not helpful at all. That's why this was difficult to the point of me stressing like this. I couldn't get on her bad side if I wanted to keep living, but I also couldn't stand out too much. I should have just asked those nice bosses to come. Why don't we bring the red-white ones back? Your Highness, you'll look too much like a saint if you wear white. Red with blonde hair, you sound like the third prince of a kingdom who is fated to surpass the crown prince and become king. Why the heck did they have such a specific story to share? Knock knock. Someone knocked on the reception room door at that moment. I thought it was the attendant who went to get the blue formal attire. Come in. Hi there, our little prince. I heard an extremely familiar and welcoming voice. I turned around in shock. Your handsome face is half its normal size. Your Eminence. It was Cardinal Aurélie Boutier. As soon as she appeared, all of the attendants shut up, took one step back, and bowed deeply. It had been about half a month since I last saw the Cardinal, but hearing her warm voice made me a bit emotional. She walked over with numerous attendants and gently grabbed my cheeks. She then made kissing noises as she put her cheeks on mine. I was a bit bewildered at the French-style greeting I had only seen in movies, but I was happy to see her too. It must have been hard on you. How is your body? I am okay, Your Eminence. I pray that you have also been well. It felt empty without all of you there. Her beige-colored eyes gently curled up. I couldn't come see you because I was busy preparing for the official announcement and feast, but... She looked around at the attendants, me, and the outfits that were laid out all around the reception room's couch. It looks like I picked the right time to show up. I evaded responding by smiling. I was supposed to be at the Empress Palace by 6 p.m., but I still was struggling with my outfit when it is now past 4 p.m. I definitely looked lost. I am our little prince's chaperone today, so I guess I should help out. The Cardinal commented and made a simple gesture toward her attendants. Chap, excuse me, asterisk, will something like this really be okay? Frederick doesn't say things she does not mean. She said a comfortable outfit, so you can wear something comfortable. The cardinal smiled warmly and stood in front of Juliet Palace. I was wearing a casual light yellow outfit with fancier cuff links and new boots. It was the outfit that she picked instead of formal attire. I was wearing a necklace made of a pumpkin-colored diamond and a silver strap which the cardinal chose on top of it all. The few accessories were extravagant when compared to the casual outfit. Is this what they call dressed up but not really? Is it? Demi, stay here and play with your friends. Big bro will just go to eat dinner and quickly come back. Screech. The divine beast screeched as if to respond before jumping out of my arms. The other red pandas that had been running around the garden came over and curled up with Demi. I waved at the 3 red pandas that were curled up together in a giant ball and got onto the cardinal's carriage. Benjamin, Gonal, and the other attendants got in the carriage right behind ours. The wheels slowly started moving. We brought those kiddos back, but shouldn't we send them to a better place? I asked while watching Demi and his family slowly get farther away through the window. The 2 red pandas that had been at the Duum March no longer had a place to go after the divine item they were protecting, the Sword of Wisdom from the Flaming Star, had found a master. I didn't feel right just leaving them to wander the plains, and so I brought them back with me. I experienced firsthand from the great clearance that divine beasts and demonic beasts were completely different existences. Demonic beasts went on the offense after detecting ether from a divine item, no matter what shape it was in. However, divine beasts lose their focus and end up wandering around if a divine item chooses a master or disappears. That was why they were unable to detect the blessing of the blue sea, which was absorbed into Christelle's body and instantly seemed to lose interest after the Sword of Wisdom fell into the Imperial Prince's hands. They were called the Messenger of Gods and seemed more like elementals than actual beasts. There are divine items to the north and east of the Empire as well. It might be good to send them to one of those places if we have the chance. The cardinal seemed to be trying to console me. Elizabeth heads north every June to escape the heat, so it'll be perfect to send them with her. I heard about her regular vacations to escape the heat during the night market in Lucas Village. While escorting the cardinal, I thought that I should at least take good care of them until they left. By the time we got off the carriage and were climbing the steps of the Empress Palace, I was ranting about everything that had been frustrating me. I don't understand it at all, Your Eminence. Holy Domain is supposed to nullify all powers, so why could it not stop the illusion-causing fog? Because the Almighty God is capricious. Your Eminence. I grumbled back and the cardinal laughed out loud before guiding me to the first-floor banquet hall. The attendants of the Empress Palace, who were dressed up more than usual, greeted us wherever we went. There was a long red carpet placed above the marble floor that started from the outside. The chandelier had been wiped clean and shined brighter than usual. It was probably because that fog had no intention of killing all of you. What do you? If that fog was poisonous, the Holy Domain would have definitely blocked it. Poison is for killing. However, illusions only cause chaos. They could even bring joy to some people. There is no reason to block it. The Holy Domain's judgment is arbitrary like that. Quote. The Holy Domain will not block large hails falling from the sky. That is just terrible weather, not something trying to kill the priest. I slowly walked down the sunlit hallway. It looked as if paint had been scattered all over it. It was difficult to understand but also understandable at the same time. The reason that Sadie's dagger was able to brush past me despite having my Holy Domain open on the first day I met the kid was because the punk was aiming not at me, but at the decorative rope behind me. The reason that the aftershock from the Imperial Prince's Sword of Wisdom hit me a week ago was because it was not an attack aimed towards me. It's confusing. I think that it will take me some time to get a feel for it. That is what I meant by the Almighty God being capricious. She was speaking almost as if she was singing. We were now turning the final corner. Over 10 attendants were silently following behind us. Our divine oracles seem omnipotent but they are not able to take a life away. Yes ma'am. This was the basics of the basics written in Chapter 1 of the Less Than Church of the Almighty God's Introduction to Theology Greater Than. Priests could not borrow the Almighty God's words to order death. That was a decision based only on the Almighty God's will. It is the same with the Holy Domain. It protects you from all powers, however it is not up to you to decide which things can or can't hit you. That is up to the Almighty God. Why is it so complicated? Mages and holy knights were pretty much people with superpowers in the QNW world, but it seemed only the priests had a lot of restrictions. There were a lot of things we needed to know how to do, and a lot of things to memorize. I even questioned whether or not the author killed Prince Jesse because the second male lead's settings were too complicated. Ah, my young holy knight is already here. The cardinal spoke in a happy voice at that moment. It made me move away from her and look forward. A man and his attendant were standing and looking toward us in front of the large banquet hall. His face looked perfect as if he was not even the slightest bit tired. It really was good I didn't wear the black. TWSB, Chapter 58, Frederick Ryester 3. Your Eminence. Hi, Cedric. Hello, Your Royal Highness. Quote. His shitty attitude held firm today as well. The Imperial Prince bastard looked at me once but did not even give me the shortest of greetings. It was not anything shocking, so I simply stood next to Cardinal Boutier and waited for our turn. The attendant, who was supposed to be checking the list of guests, motioned to the knights without bothering to look down at the list. 2 knights completely dressed in silver armor moved forward, mirroring each other like a decalcomania pattern, and pushed the large door open. Click. His Royal Highness, Prince Cedric, Her Eminence, Cardinal Aurelie, and Prince Jesse Venetian now entering. I heard the doorknob turn as an attendant loudly announced our arrival. I started to feel tense again. I would meet the master of this empire in about 10 or 20 minutes. I couldn't help but take a peek at the Imperial Prince and the Cardinal's clothes. They were not dressed in formal attire either. It's okay, our little prince. Everybody has a positive interest in you. The Cardinal must have noticed my uncertainty as she gently whispered some comforting words into my ear. Creak. The door opened and the wide banquet hall filled my view. It wasn't something I could take in with just one glance. I tried very hard to close my jaw but it was dropping open on its own. It was also hard to not look all around. Everything was big and luxurious in the banquet hall, mimicking the style of the Empress Palace. There were over 10 chandeliers hanging from the high ceiling. The pillars supporting the ceiling on either end of the hall seemed to be made of marble. I could see an orchestra seated to play as well. The center of the hall was empty, perhaps acting as a dance floor. The atmosphere and size were completely different from the welcome banquet at the Duum March. The entire interior was sparkling with white gold. They are all Père de Ryester who have a close or decent relationship to Frederick. The Cardinal whispered and elegantly smiled. We started walking side by side with the Imperial Prince in front of us. I could see the nobles getting up to show their respects beyond his clacking shoes. There were about 200 people. It was a suffocating number for me, but it definitely seemed like a gathering of a small close confidants for the Empress. They were seated evenly across 3 long, wide tables. As expected, the Carrara marble tables and chairs were adorned with luxurious golden decorations. Don't be burdened, think happy thoughts. For example, what you can loot from Frederick. Your Eminence. The Imperial Prince quietly called out to the Cardinal. I knew that she was just saying that to calm me down, so I just laughed it off. We were now at the head of the center table. The nobles were still bowing deeply without making a peep. The Cardinal added on. It's your birthday soon. Isn't there anything you want? Excuse me, it's almost my birthday. My eyes opened wide at this completely unexpected news. The attendants quickly came over and pulled out our chairs. The head of the table, which was clearly the Empress's seat, was empty. The Cardinal's seat was to the right and the Imperial Prince's seat was to the left. I was seated right next to the Cardinal. I was already getting dizzy at the fact that the Empress would be so close. I'm at the same table as the boss. I can't escape. Will you resume the music? The Cardinal leisurely said into the air. A well-dressed attendant silently bowed and waved his hand. Musical note, musical note, musical note. The orchestra's beautiful melody immediately surrounded us. It felt as if we pressed play on a paused playlist. The nobles all sat down simultaneously. It was so cohesive it looked prearranged. The hall immediately erupted in a rowdy atmosphere as if it had never been quiet. I wondered if it had been this lively before we arrived. "Hello, Your Eminence, Your Royal Highness, Prince Jesse." I heard a familiar beautiful voice from the other side. It was the person who was seated next to the Imperial Prince today. She smiled beautifully. It looked as if she was in the spotlight with her hair gently fluttering. Asterisk. That scorpion demonic beast's name is the Illusion Scorpion. It was the winning sacrifice for the great clearance of demonic beasts 7 years ago. It almost got me good too. Marquis Francois Duham, who was seated to my right, raised his voice to explain. There were slightly drunk nobles all around the banquet hall laughing and talking loudly. It was already past 7, however the Empress showed no signs of showing up. Christelle was mixing brandy into the Marquise's stout like a pro. "That's just a bomb. Her Eminence believes that its illusion fog would not have been for killing." I quickly spoke. I felt a need to resolve my questions while the Marquis was still coherent. Christelle, who pushed that bomb of a drink to the Marquis, turned to her left and started feeding Vice Captain Elisabeth pieces of beef from the beef bourguignon dish. The MC truly was a good person. There was still a simple splint on the young Countess's right arm, but she said that it should heal cleanly if she is careful for another week or so. That is true. The illusion I saw was sad yet happy at the same time. One of my 3 younger sisters was bringing home a man to marry. The Marquis pretended to cry as he spoke. He has 3 younger sisters. I didn't see them in the duchy. My brother loves his younger siblings very much. He cried for an hour after seeing that illusion. Hervé, how dare you lie in front of these esteemed individuals? I cried for 2 hours. Captain Hervé Duham, who was seated to Vice Captain Elisabeth's left, commented before the Marquis corrected him in a sharp tone. I laughed because it was so ridiculous. I thought it would be a dignified and difficult place to be since the Empress was presiding over the victory celebration, but, unexpectedly, it was not that uncomfortable. There were a lot of familiar faces, likely because they put the people who participated in the great clearance near the head of the table. That beast's fog must have just been a way to cause chaos if you saw such a happy occasion. It makes it easier for me to understand Her Eminence's explanation. It's because you're a good student, my little prince. The Cardinal warmly responded and scooped a bite of her dauphinoise. The fragrance of the warm potato tickled my nose. That's going to be good for sure. I nodded my head and reached my hand toward the cassoulet at the center of the table. Since we are already talking about them, Your Highness. Yes, sir. The Marquis turned toward me a bit. The oldest of my younger sisters is making a celestial covenant next week. Thanks to Her Majesty's heavenly mercy, she is allowed to have the ceremony at the Imperial Temple. I see, congratulations. I put a bunch of kidney beans, pheasant meat, and goose meat on my spoon and took a bite. I then enjoyed how it melted away like gratin in my mouth as I thought about the meaning of a holy covenant. The official name of a celestial covenant was the Covenant of Paired Stars, the contract that the Reister imperial family and their collateral line made with priests. This was where 2 people vowed in front of the Almighty God that they would become soulmates, officially becoming religious partners. The imperial family takes influential priests as partners to solidify their religious influence and support while the priest gains wealth, fame, and special privileges by being partnered with a member of the imperial family. I read that that was the case, at least in recent history. I heard that the Marquise's House of Duham was part of the imperial family's collateral line, so it wasn't weird that she was making a celestial covenant with a priest. Empress Frederick and Cardinal Boutier were connected by a celestial covenant as well. Of course, the 2 of them seemed to have had a close friendship since before that. Contractors of a celestial covenant could supposedly feel each other's emotions and hear one another's voices, but I had no idea if it was true. Anyway, that was how it was portrayed in a romance novel being published in the less than bi-weekly Reister Greater Than. However, we are lacking a witness. The covenant requires a noble at a minimum of the Marquis level, and 2 priests at a minimum of the bishop level. The Marquis continued to speak. I nodded my head and scraped every last bit of cassoulet off my plate. The talk about the celestial covenant must have been interesting, as Christelle and Vice Captain Elisabeth were looking at us as well. If you are available, Could you please be that final witness, Your Highness? I blinked a few times. It wasn't hard to be a witness if I didn't have to go out of the imperial palace, officiate the ceremony, or be the moderator. The people involved in the Celestial Covenant were the two people, not their families or the parish, so there shouldn't be any later headaches for being the witness. The House of Duum was one of the Empress's close confidants, but the fact that Yunce never mentioned them must mean that they don't play a big role in QNW. I turned toward the Cardinal. I had nothing to lose. If she gave permission, I would do it. If she said no, I would just slack off. I think that it would be a good experience for our little prince. I approve. She calmly responded. Then I am fine with it as well. The Marquis became extremely excited and covered his face with both hands after hearing my response. Captain Duum thanked me with a bright expression on his face as well. For the esteemed royal priest to be the witness, Antoinette would be very happy. I guess his sister's name is Antoinette. This family was quite dramatic in many ways. The Marquise's voice went up a notch. Is there anything you would like in return, Your Highness? I heard that your birthday is on the 31st Street. I will give you whatever you ask for as a present as long as it is something that this lowly Marquis can do for you. I'm not sure. I now learned that May 31st was Prince Jess's birthday. I had not even thought about it, since my birthday is in February. I felt that there was too much that I did not know about the prince. I now knew his birthday, but his middle name was still a blank. I'm sure he has one. Your Highness, please ask him to send you on vacation. Vice Captain Elisabeth gently interjected at that moment. I turned my head toward her. Christelle and the young countess were seated next to each other, looking at me with sparkles in their eyes. I looked away after feeling too awkward but made eye contact with the imperial prince this time. This is a really bad seat. I'm sorry, but I don't think it is the Marquise's jurisdiction on whether I get to leave the imperial palace or not. That is true, but I will make a sincere request to Her Majesty if that is what you wish. Don't you think that doing that would have the opposite effect instead? No, I don't think I need a vacation. June in Riester is very hot, Your Highness. Please think about it carefully. Vice Captain Elisabeth smiled brightly and shook the glass of green apple juice in her hand. I'm sure it's not as hot as the Korean summer where it feels like the asphalt is melting. Vice Captain Elisabeth and I are scheduled to go play up north when the June heat blows in. Christelle sounded excited. I thought that the two of them became really close through the great clearance of demonic beasts. I guess I was right, since they were already planning their summer vacation together. In that case, I had even more reason to keep myself hidden away in the imperial palace. Or maybe you should ask for a palace. You played a big role this time. Christelle went, oh my, and slapped Vice Captain Elisabeth's back after hearing her quiet comment. The young countess peeked toward the imperial prince with a mischievous look on her face. What is up with these people? The mustard is quite spicy. I think you would like it, young Lady Sarnez. I tried to change the topic. Christelle had a skeptical smile on her face but quickly received the plate of lamb ribs I handed her after hearing that it was spicy. This MC is mean, but at least she should keep my secret. I didn't know how much the Empress and the Cardinal knew about the situation, but I had absolutely no reason to admit that I found out the Imperial Prince's true identity. What is it, Your Royal Highness? I ended up making eye contact with the Imperial Prince, who had quite a serious look on his face. Do you really want a palace? Wait, why is your train of thought off in La La Land all by itself? Click. Her Majesty is now entering. I heard an energetic shout from the direction of the seat with the greatest seniority. The orchestra stopped playing. The rowdy room instantly froze over. All of the nobles quickly composed themselves and stood up. The Cardinal seemed to be the only one here who was relaxed. I quickly wiped my mouth with a napkin and stood up following the Cardinal. After that, looks like you are all having fun. A slightly low and husky voice cut through the silence like an iceboat. It was not the same direction from which we had come. I raised my head halfway to look forward. The heavy marble wall behind the head seat was slowly opening. There was a middle-aged woman standing slightly crooked at the center. Who knew that there would be a door there too? As you all know, my son was the winner of the great clearance of demonic beasts. She sounded tired. I could see a long and nimble sword through the gap in her pearl-colored jacket. She was the only person who could carry a weapon in the Empress Palace. Her short silver hair sparkled under the light. For some odd reason, I had to manually remind myself to breathe. So, keep on drinking. Don't even think about leaving early tonight. Empress Frederick made that proclamation before glaring like a wasp. Her sharp cherry-colored eyes pierced right through me. I got chills on the back of my neck. I guess I'm not making it back before the day is over. TWSB, Chapter 59, Frederick Reister 4. Sit. As soon as Empress Frederick made that comment, everybody in the hall moved in unison. Some people seemed drunk, but I guess they were jolted out of it with the Empress in front of them. I could only give mad props to Cardinal Boutier, who was subtly smiling in such an atmosphere. I guess it's time for a toast. The Empress, who had approached our table, commented in a low voice. Seeing her up close, even the loosely placed cufflinks and the crow's feet by her eyes made her seem difficult to approach. I gently grabbed my glass of aloe juice. Chief of Staff Laura Mendy filled the Empress's cup with a newly opened bottle of rosé. For the endless prosperity of the Reister Empire and for everlasting peace for my son. Cheers! The energetic shouts of almost 200 people echoed through the banquet hall. The orchestra immediately resumed playing. The hall instantly became lively again. The nobles picked up their glasses and were moving around, talking loudly. It seemed as if they had never been fading away earlier. It reminded me of high school when the lunch bell rang. Her Majesty is usually relaxed with the nobles. She believes that it will annoy her less to do so. I recalled something Benjamin once told me. Is this a way of being relaxed with them? They do seem to have listened well when the time called for it. I greet the sun that has descended to the ground. I told you to sit, Francois. Yes, Your Majesty. Marquis Duham jumped up and quickly sat back down. The Empress took a seat at the head of the table, holding her glass in her right hand as she slowly looked around at us. The air felt stuffy despite it not being the rainy season. The people at the two tables adjacent to us were simply enjoying themselves after offering us up as sacrifices. Good job to all of you for spending time in that punk's territory. Eat a lot and have fun before you go. Thank you for your imperial benevolence, Your Majesty. Vice Captain Elisabeth's words of gratitude were perfect. Christelle and I bowed as well. Silence soon returned as people resumed eating. The imperial prince and his mother said a few things to each other here and there. There were no issues of the conversation jumping to us. Christelle, Vice Captain Elisabeth, the Duham brothers, and I had silently agreed to fill our stomachs and leave them to have their bonding moment. Nobody tried to drag it out any longer than necessary. I heard that a holy knight from the Vatican has arrived at the Sarnez Duchy. Yes, Your Majesty, the Empress suddenly addressed Christelle at that moment. I silently cut a piece off my cordon bleu while listening to the information flowing to my ears. When will your education start? This coming Monday, Your Majesty. That's fast. I'm glad to hear that. The holy knight that the cardinal had requested to be dispatched for Christelle's education seemed to have finally arrived at the Empire. That meant that there was no need for her to take lessons with me anymore. I barely calmed the corner of my lips from curling up. Christelle was a good person and had excellent potential, but I still didn't want to be mixed in with her. I put the large piece of cordon bleu in my mouth. The familiar yet new taste enveloped my tongue. My mood lifted up instantly. The Emperor continued to speak. If you are okay with it, I hope that my son can learn with you. Your Majesty, are you talking about His Royal Highness? Jackpot. I raised my head and saw Vice Captain Elisabeth working hard to move her philtrum back and forth. It must have been quite funny for her. I quickly looked down because I was worried that I would burst with laughter as well. Christelle's hand stopped mid-air while holding a palmier. Yes, there is nobody in the Empire who does not know that the Imperial Prince has used the abilities of a Holy Knight. The Imperial family will request that they dispatch another Holy Knight, but wouldn't it be good to learn together until then? Mother, I know that you are not interested in being appointed as a Holy Knight. However, do not think you can avoid the lessons to use your powers properly. The Empress sternly rebuked the Imperial Prince. I bit my lips so that I wouldn't be openly smiling. Not only would Christelle stop taking lessons with me, she would be doing group lessons with the Imperial Prince. Am I dreaming? It would be my greatest honor to learn together with His Royal Highness. She responded as calmly as possible. Though, that last part sounded almost like gibberish. Despite the fact that it was stated as a request, the Empress's words were basically an order. Christelle broke the heart-shaped palmier in half with 2 hands. Quote. As for the Imperial Prince, he looked ready to butcher the pork in front of him with his knife. I was looking on the other side of the table at the two of them with a new mindset. They were both being extremely rude in front of an adult, but it felt so good to see the two of them seated next to each other like this. It felt as if the author was finally trying to actively connect the two of them together. It did seem like the right timing, since they had been building up their relationship through the spring ball and the great clearance of demonic beasts. The time I had spent suffering in between the main characters flashed before my eyes. Don't fight again and focus. Now that people know that the two of you are holy knights, pretty much every noble priest in the Empire will want to make a celestial covenant with you. The House of Sarnez is not a collateral line of the imperial family, but there are not many religious figures who will ignore the power your family holds. The Empress gulped down her wine as she said that. The Cardinal told her to drink slowly, however she pretended not to hear her, and instead got a new cup before standing up. I guess it's time to pummel the other tables too. She also did not forget to leave such a magnificent comment behind. 11 p.m. Marquis François Duham died. Marquis Duham, you can't sleep here. You need to go home. Where are you staying? I shook his shoulder. The Marquis, who had his head on the table, was completely wasted from Christelle's bomb drink attacks. The distilled liquor that the Empress sent around earlier was not extremely strong. It was similar to vodka, but he chugged it all down because Christelle mixed it with grapefruit juice. Should I call your attendant over? Pooh, I almost accidentally said an Uber. TL, Korea has these driver services where people come and drive your car home, but it isn't a thing elsewhere, so Uber it is. I looked around. Christelle was at the table on the left with her parents. Vice Captain Elisabeth was also there, taking care of her drunk mother, while Captain Hervé Duham was sleeping in the exact same position as the Marquis. Their hair and skin color seemed to be the only similarities between them, but seeing them like this definitely made them seem like siblings. I should tell a passing attendant to take care of them and get out of here. I am thankful that you helped my son. I flinched and turned my head. Empress Frederick, who had returned to the center table at some point, was looking at me. She was still holding a glass of wine, but she did not seem drunk at all. The Imperial Prince had not moved at all since the beginning of the celebration and was still in his seat, drinking water. He said that you played a big role in his attainment of the Sword of Wisdom from the Flaming Star. I am honored, Your Majesty. I bowed toward her. Is this the recognition she was talking about? I was relieved that it was not a big ordeal, standing in front of everyone. I'm thankful too, my little prince. My godson has found at least a little bit of peace thanks to you. It wasn't much, Your Eminence. The Cardinal, who had been sitting there like a painting, commented as well. The peace she was talking about was the fact that the Imperial Prince's ether depletion symptoms were a bit better. I thought that the strong ether of the Sword of Wisdom should have been quite helpful for him. Does that mean that Sadie, will he not turn small like that again? Do you know how Cedric pulled out the Sword of Wisdom? I did not see it, but I believe that he would have channeled his fire attribute ether, which matches the attribute of the divine item, Your Majesty. I see. The Empress sounded as if she was chuckling as she took a sip of wine. I wanted to go home. And how much do you know about my son? Excuse me. I raised my head to see eyes as calm as red wine observing me. Frederick. I must hear his answer. The Empress remained firm despite the Cardinal's dissuasion. I didn't even need to think about the meaning of this. She was basically curious about how much I, the prince of an enemy kingdom, know about the imperial family's internal secrets. My survival instincts and intuition gave me my answer. I only had to say what she wanted. I don't know anything, Your Majesty. What? The response came not from the Empress but from the Imperial Prince. I could see him slightly frown. I do not know anything other than the fact that His Royal Highness uses fire attribute ether. Ha! The Empress sighed. I maintained my calm. Only an idiot would babble to the person who controls whether you die or not about their precious child's secrets. The Holy Kingdom already cast me out. There would be no ramifications even if she killed me. That is why I have to act clueless if it is the Empress' wish. Regardless, I was planning to feign ignorance anyway because I felt so embarrassed. A short moment of silence swept through the table. You still have a long way to go, Cedric. The Empress squeezed her son's shoulder once before letting go. The Cardinal quietly sighed. Did the conversation topic suddenly change? It's not easy to earn trust. Work harder at it. The middle-aged woman commented in a mischievous tone. I peeked to the side to see that the Imperial Prince's orange eyes were glaring at me as if he wanted to roast me on the spot. It scared me even more because I knew that he was capable of actually doing it now. What's the issue now? We owe you a debt of gratitude, so I will give you the opportunity to request anything you wish. I heard it is your birthday soon. The Empress resumed speaking to me. It seemed as if everybody but me knew about my birthday. Thank you very much, Your Majesty. You may return to rest now. It is late. Awesome. I had to work hard to prevent my cheeks from rising in joy. I thought that I would only be able to leave after spending the whole night here, so it was great luck to be able to leave before midnight. The Cardinal had a bitter smile on her face after seeing me so happy. It seemed as if she wanted to leave with me but could not do so. I called over a passing attendant to take care of the Duam siblings, respectfully said goodbye to the 3 people remaining at the table, and left. The only thought on my mind was regarding my birthday present. It wasn't really my birthday, but I had to use this opportunity well since it was rare for a diplomatic hostage to get the privilege of choice like this. Nobles were holding hands and spinning around the hall, dancing. The calculator in my head was spinning around as well. Asterisk. On the eastern part of the continent of the rising moon, the Venetian Holy Kingdom. A man was angrily tapping the end of a folding fan. There were endless tapping noises echoing in the wide palace room. The attendants gathered nearby were warily looking at the man, not knowing what to do. They looked tense because they didn't know when a chair or vase might come flying. Their handsome master was sometimes angelic and sometimes devilish. Though, he was more frequently the latter. The urgent news that came across the border today was enough to turn him into a devil. Why is he still alive? He was not asking the attendants. Vicious wrinkles filled the face of the man whose face was usually smooth despite being over 50. The man began to open and close the fan over and over. It was a violet-colored fan that complemented his faded light purple hair. Not only did the Imperial Prince get a divine item, the daughter of a duke became a holy knight. And in between them is that dirty bastard child. Why, Your Royal Highness. We must be misinformed about Prince Jess's great performance. Shut up. Bong. Clang. The man ended up flipping over the tea table. The attendant who had spoken curled his shoulders forward in fear. Hot tea splattered on the wallpaper, floor, and the attendant's clothes. Nobody dared to move. The prince consort of the Holy Kingdom, Werner, brushed back some of his hair and calmed himself. He did not die back then and made me extremely angry. Is he planning on building his influence in the West? How would he dare to have such thoughts, Your Royal Highness? The Empress of the Empire is no pushover. I'm certain that she will not just sit back and let the prince gain popularity. The prince consort glared at the attendant with a vicious gaze. Oops. He should not have used the word, popular. You bastard. Slam. Royal father. A small figure opened the door without knocking and entered at that moment. The prince consort looked flustered for a moment. The attendants used this opening to quickly start cleaning the floor. The attendants who came with this uninvited guest looked pale. Barging into the prince consort's bedroom like this would usually result in severe punishment. Princess, did you hear the news, Royal Father? They said that my brother rode a griffin the size of a mountain. He then awakened the Imperial Prince Nim and young lady with kisses. They are just lies. The prince consort instantly cut his young daughter off. At 7 years old, second Princess Cornelis did not know how to control her excitement yet. The child with rosy cheeks shook her small head side to side. The man picked his daughter up. The pieces of glass on the floor were crushed under his shoes. He supported the princess with his arm and headed toward the window with a peaceful look on his face as if nothing had happened. The child's ivory-colored hair sparkled in the sun. Elder brother said that he would come back if I slept 100 nights, but I didn't know that he would have adventures there too. Adventures. The prince consort chuckled. His chocolate-colored eyes became as dark as the night. Adventures are always dangerous, my little princess. You have to bet your life on them. TWSB, Chapter 60, Leave him to enjoy it. 1. I received my first birthday present a week later. To be more specific, it was Cardinal Boutier willingly accepting my request, but it was a great gain for me. Right this way, Prince Jesse. An attendant of the Empress Palace respectfully opened the door for me. The knights in silver armor protecting the entrance respectfully bowed as well. The entire Empress Palace except the main entrance and the lobby was a giant maze. The place I am visiting today was also a new place for me. I'm sure Her Eminence has already informed you about it, but please let me guide you through it one more time. There is an old ether barrier in the deepest part of the Imperial Family Library to the far left. Only a direct descendant of the Imperial family can enter through it. You may access any other bookshelf here, however, it will be difficult to leave with a book. The library is open all year, so please visit at your convenience whenever you'd like. Yes, thank you very much. I hope that you find the books here to be informative. Please let me know if you need any assistance. The attendant bowed with disciplined movements and walked away. I couldn't help but smile. I couldn't enter the library, let alone the Empress Palace, when I first transmigrated here, but now I can come here whenever I like. Building a relationship with the Cardinal and helping out Imperial Prince Cedric was worth it. Furthermore, this was the Imperial Family Library. We will be waiting outside as well, Your Highness. Good luck, Your Highness. Benjamin and Gonal warmly commented. I called an attendant over so that they could prepare a place for the two of them to rest. I waved at them, and turned around. I then looked at the large room in front of me. A ton of information was waiting for me. There was so much that I was worried whether I could use them properly. I'll need to use them well if I want to go home. I mumbled to myself and took one step forward. Luxurious windows reaching the ceiling filled the wall across from the entrance. The scent of old books filled my lungs and dust scattered like paint in all directions as the rays of the late spring sun filtered through. The right wall was full of books, stacked 3 stories high. The first 2 stories were accessible by a ladder while the third story was like an attic with a place to sit. The left side resembled a university library with closely lined up ebony bookshelves. It reminded me of a movie set. I gulped. I pulled my notebook out of my pocket. The first thing to look for, divine item. I started with the shelves on the left. All the books Gonal brings me are ones out on the market, so they were easy to read and informative. However, they sometimes lacked the most important bits of information. It was because the things I wanted to learn were either extremely sensitive or secret information. For example, information on the divine item at the Temple of Boundaries. The Temple of Boundaries was the Pope's territory, so normal people had no way of learning about it. They had no reason to know about it either. However, I was sure it was different for the imperial family of the empire. I was curious about the power that made me transmigrate into this place. Here it is. It took me a while to find a thin, yet old, book. It had a lovely cover that did not fit the grandiose name of the Imperial Family Library. I took a look inside and it's a fairy tale. I started smiling. Fairy tales and cartoons were the best mediums for tackling difficult concepts. I flipped through it to see that the book was a collection of stories about a young girl and her adventures with the divine items of the Empire, the Temple of Boundaries, and the Holy Kingdom. Each page was full of handwritten text and hand-drawn images. I was quite interested and looked at the back cover. There was beautiful cursive handwriting. Written by Archduke Evelines for his beloved child. Archduke Evelines. I didn't know who that was, but I had a feeling that he was a good father. I held the book and found a desk to sit my butt down. I decided that this would be the book for my research today. Asterisk. I spent the morning taking lessons from the Cardinal alone before having lunch with her. I then stopped by the Imperial Family Library alone, and returned to Juliet Palace to relax. This was heaven. This was exactly what I wanted for my transmigrated life. I had such happy thoughts as I flipped through my notebook. It was the page with my notes on Archduke Eveline's masterpiece, Less Than Kaboom. Eve, great adventure greater than. Ah, His Royal Highness is being pushed back. Shish, Pierre, he's going to hear you. It's a humid day today. I'm certain that young Lady Sarnez will win. Of course, that happiness I talked about was just for me. The two main characters seem to be in a different situation. But bang. Wow, I couldn't see the sword just now. Did the young lady dodge that? Really, the reception room balcony was quite chaotic, as it had been all week. The attendants of Juliet Palace were gathered there, looking out at the outdoor training ground with sweaty hands. I was going through the information in my notebook but raised my head every so often to observe the attendants. Their reactions were quite entertaining and great for keeping my sleepiness at bay. His Royal Highness is so handsome. I don't think he's human. I'm still certain that the young lady will win today. I'll bet 500 francs on it. Why are you so angry? I sighed. Is this how people feel when they watch those reaction videos on YouTube? To explain the situation, Christelle and the Imperial Prince started their group lessons with the Holy Knight from the Vatican last Monday. The lessons were taking place at the Imperial Palace at the Empress's request. However, the interior training ground was still under repair. That was why the outdoor training ground behind Juliet Palace ended up as the classroom. Anybody who wanted to watch was allowed to watch, as they had no reason to hide the fact that the two of them were holy knights. That evening, rumors about how my reception room balcony was the ideal spot to watch had spread throughout the entire Imperial Palace. Wow, Your Highness, if you would permit it. The attendants of Juliet Palace really wanted to watch the Imperial Prince and the noble young ladies sparring. They even finished their night tasks early before coming to beg me to let them watch. They must have thought that they needed to get my permission to watch the sparring since their superior, me, was sitting in the reception room studying. I had chuckled because it was cute seeing adults act like this. Please enjoy. I don't mind. Woo. Thank you for your grace, Your Highness. A few days later, the balcony was full of attendants whenever it was time for their lesson. There were so many people, there was no more room left. I enjoyed a peaceful evening through the loud white noise. Demi was napping on my nap, the delicious fennel tea was warming me up, and I had some olive oil cake. All of this created the perfect combination. Yuns and Big Bro should experience such luxury too. I brought more snacks, Your Highness. Thanks. Gonal smiled brightly and put down a second platter of olive oil cake. I smiled back and returned to my notebook. Crackle. My goodness, fire comes out of his right hand too. It looked as if the young lady was going to use her fist. What I learned about today was the Paten of Wishes. That was the name of the divine item in the Temple of Boundaries. According to Archduke Eveline's explanation, the Paten looks like a large silver tray filled with holy water. However, this is not regular water like what Christelle controls, it is divine material that has been in the Paten for ages. Eve, you can't drink that. This is not water. Then what is it? It is the cleanest form of ether. It is a noble and pure form of the authority of the Almighty God. Bullshit. The main character of the fairy tale, Eve, had quite the personality. Her friend in the story, Nikki, worked so hard to explain divine items to her but she treated most of it as fake and ignored it. Of course, I was not planning on complaining about Nikki's explanations. The divine item that was stolen from the Temple of Vigilance. The Paten of Wishes. Possibility that it did not disappear and that someone used it. Who made the wish? Uncertain. Do other divine items have the power to grant wishes as well? No. Confirmed through the Sword of Wisdom. Effect on me. Transmigration, regression, turned into an ether colossus. Special trait. Grants wishes made through blood but can only be used by the Pope. This was the problem. I poked the last line of my notes with the quill pen. Less than kaboom. Eve Great Adventure Greater Than stated that the only person who could make a wish of blood on the paten was the Pope. But, Gonal, how long has the Pope's position been vacant again? I don't know the exact number of years, Your Highness. Holy Queen Eileen accepted Emperor Romero's proclamation, so, probably at least 100 years. I couldn't believe it. Who had used the divine item to have me transmigrate here if there was no Pope? How does this make any? No, is it possible that a future Pope used it? Is that too far-fetched? Was Archduke Evelines really bullshitting? But Your Highness, shouldn't you stop them? His Royal Highness and young Lady Sarnez are. Bong. The noise of an intense explosion echoed into the room as well. The attendants on the balcony covered their ears or mouth in shock. I peeked at them before looking back at Gonal. The young boy looked quite concerned. If they end up getting hurt, it should be fine since it is a spar. The teacher from the Vatican is there with them. I'm sure that he will take care of things. I thought so at first as well, but I don't think that the teacher is capable of handling them. Let's just think of it as them growing while fighting. Eventually, they'll become friends, and then husband and wife. Oh, come on, Your Highness. Gonal looked at me with a gaze that seemed to be saying that something like that would never happen. I felt a bit wronged. The two of them were fated to be together and anybody can see that they are a picturesque couple, so why was he reacting as if this made no sense? Anyway, there is no need for me to go out there. They even have a priest who came to supplement their ether. That is true, but there's nothing to worry about. You can rest here for a bit too, before you go. I smiled and patted an empty chair. It was great not seeing the two main characters for a whole week, so there was no need whatsoever for me to be the one breaking that flow. I have not even gone near the balcony whenever they were having their lessons. Gonal hesitated before sitting down like a good boy. Marquis Duham's younger sister, was her celestial covenant at 11. Yes, Your Highness. They asked if you could please come to the temple by 10:30 a.m. I nodded my head. The covenant of paired stars that I agreed to be a witness for was already happening tomorrow. I took a big bite of the cake. The saltiness of the salt from the North Sea on top rekindled my enthusiasm for studying. CHH. Crackle. Oh. The background music was Christelle's water show, the Imperial Prince's fire show, and the noise of the spectators. Asterisk. The next day. Welcome, Your Highness. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. Hello, Marquis Duham. Marquis Francois Duham, who was supposedly staying in the imperial capital this month as well, came out of the Imperial Palace Temple to greet me. I completely ignored his hand and got off the carriage. His light pink eyes sparkled, not even the slightest bit hurt from my action. He would not stop talking the whole way to the temple door. Did you decide what you would like from me as a birthday present, Your Highness? May I ask what you requested from Her Majesty? Not yet. I am still thinking about that one as well. You are quite the careful person, Your Highness. I am extremely excited about what you will ask for. The Marquis made an extremely exaggerated gesture and opened the temple door. This heavy door usually required 2 knights to open it, so I was surprised that he was able to pull it open with such a skinny frame. Benjamin and Gonal, who were following behind us, seemed shocked at his energy as well. Antoinette, Prince Jesse has arrived. This esteemed sir is the one who will be a witness for your ceremony. It sounded like some dialogue from a musical. Holy Almighty God. Brother, I have no regrets even if I die now. The response that came from a distance was even more dramatic. I smiled, looking a bit bewildered. The woman standing at the center of the low platform seemed to be my age and had the same black skin and light pink eyes as the Marquis. Her long brown hair was tied up high. The Marquis pretty much pulled me up to the platform as she quickly pulled her dress and bowed. Hello Prince Jesse Venetan, I greet the moon of the Holy Kingdom. My name is Antoinette Duham. Hello, young Lady Duham. Congratulations on your celestial covenant. I greeted her back. The woman became excited and thanked me over and over. I didn't know her very well, but seeing the Marquis and everybody this happy made me think that it was a good decision to come. I gave short greetings to the priestess who was the young lady's partner for the Celestial Covenant and the other priest who came as a witness. Unlike a marriage, a Celestial Covenant did not have any guests other than the 2 covenant makers, witnesses, and attendants. Then will we be starting right away? No, one of the witnesses has yet to arrive, Your Highness. The Marquis nonchalantly responded to my questions. You are not the witness, Marquis Duham. Oh, I am the MC. I was slightly confused. I had expected that Marquis Duham would be the witness since it had to be a noble who was at least a marquis. I thought about the faces of the other pair de register who the cardinal introduced to me at the celebration. Clonk, screech. The temple doors opened on both sides at that moment. The knights must have done this as usual. Everybody instantly turned toward the door. The Marquis shouted in a happy voice. The last witness has arrived. Your Royal Highness. !